They have given us a shoulder to lean on. They are our counselors, and may our good Lord keep and preserve them for us. President Gary Hogan, thank you for leading an army or battalion until all are free. IJM Kenya team, Willie Kimani was blessed to have you as his friends and colleagues. IJM is not just about work, but using the Holy Spirit as an advocate for the less children in our society in terms of justice. Now, on way forward, Castro says when he grows up, he wants to become a policeman. His brother says, Patterson, he wants to become an investigator, and he's been saying that since he was 4 years old. Willie Kimani's family got justice. We hope other families do not have to experience long years searching for justice. I hope the judiciary will hasten the wheels of justice process. Being a policeman is a noble profession. The government should ensure our policemen have continuous professional training to remind them they are not above the law. Thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you for honoring Willie today.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That is an awesome speech, inspiring us to continue fighting tirelessly until no individual has to live in fear of those who should protect them. I would like now to invite Rebecca on stage to say a few words. Please give her a clap.
Good morning everyone. Jina naitwa Rebecca Wanja Mwendwa. Ni mimi nilikuwa bibi wa the late Josephat Mwenda. Mimi kwangu kwanza ni kumshukuru Mungu kwa kunifikisha hii masaa. Si kawaida. Tena nasema ni asanti kwa sababu hii safari tulikuwa nayo haikuwa rahisi. Ilikuwa ngumu sana. Lakini juu Mungu alikuwa mbele yetu, tumepambana nayo na tumefika mwisho. Nashukuru Mungu sana kwa hiyo. Tena nashukuru IGM na Witness Protection, wametusaidia sana. Kwanza kimawaidha, wamenisaidia sana. Mimi hata sikuwa najua kama tutawaimaliza hiyo kesi juu kutoka wakati tulianza nilikuwa na wakati mgumu sana. Lakini juu IGM imenisaidia sana juu walikuwa wananitia nguvu. Mtu kama Pamela alikuwa ananiambia nisijali hata kama itachukua muda mrefu itafika mahali tu na tutamaliza. Nafikiria IGM hiyo organization yenye mko nayo inasaidia watu wengi sana. Juu tuliendelea tukapata amani, tukapata haki yetu, na nafikiria Tanjos party pali yako wanafurahia wakiwa na hao wengine na wenzake. Wanafurahia na nafikiria they will rest in peace. Tena ningeomba tu hii polisi hii mambo wanakuanga nayo kushika mtu, wakiwashika wanawaua, wasifanyange hivyo. Hata kama mtu kuna ile makosa kikundi yenu ni mzuri, yani hiyo nini hiyo amani niko nayo muendelea nayo tu kusaidia watu juu tuko wengi, si sisi tu, najua tuko wengi sana wenye wako huko nje yani hawajui kama wataweza. Muendelee tu na hiyo amani. Asante.
Asante sana Rebecca. Natumaini sisi wote tumesikia wito wako. Next on stage, I would like to invite Paul. Karibu.
Habari zenu. Mimi naitwa Paul Karuda Muiruri. Hebu tusaidiane kidogo.
Paul will be speaking in French and I shall translate.
Jitagwa Paul Karuda Muiruri.
My name is Paul Karunda Muiruri.
Na ndi brother ya Ushoitagwa Muiruri.
And I am brother to Muiruri.
Na wabere ni ngatho ingicokia nyingi muno kwi Ngai.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to God.
Ni tondu haria tumite na haria tukinyite turoga ni Ngai.
Because where we have come from and where we are now, we can only say it's God.
Ni tukenete muno ni undu wa IGM.
We are so pleased with IJM
Ni undu wa uria matunyitirire.
because of how you have supported us.
Ni tumite haraya.
We've come from far.
Kuma riria twagwire moko-ini mari oru.
From the day those bad things befell us.
Atiri hindi muturekereirie.
There is not one time you have left us on our own.
Ni muthiete mutunyitireire wega.
You have supported us well.
Tondu mwana ucio witu riria akuire ari kihinganda.
Because our child, when he died, he was the last born.
Na ndari mwana.
He had no child.
Ni tuigua twina thina thini wa ngoro citu.
We are troubled in our hearts.
Ni tondu hatiri kindu turirikanaga giake.
Because there is nothing of him we have to remember.
No ni tukenaga ni Ngai ni tondu kihoto ni kionekete.
But we are grateful to God because we have received justice.
Wa keri ndingiaga gucokeria ngatho a Kenya.
Secondly, I would not fail to say thank you to Kenyans.
Ni tondu ni maikarite magituhoyagira kuma hindi ria maiguire uhoro ucio.
Because they have kept praying for us since that incident happened.
Koguo ndirauga Ngai amarathime.
So I would like to say God bless you.
Na macio manindire na maundu maingi ngiuga.
With those few remarks, I wouldn't say a lot.
Na ni tondu ni njui kwina angi maragerera mathina-ini maya.
And because I know there are others going through the same problems.
Ikimuhoya a Kenya muture mu mahoeire.
I would ask you as Kenyans to continue praying for them.
Mariona kihoto kiao ta uria tuonete.
So that they can find justice the way we have found justice.
Ngai witu amurathime.
May God bless you. Thank you so much, Paul. At this juncture, I would like to ask all the family members for Willie, Josephat, and Muiruri, who are represented here, to please stand up so that we can recognize your presence.
A clap for them. Because we love honoring survivors, probably they can just say the name, who they were.
Good morning. My name is Helen Jenga. Thank you. Mimi ni Bibi Njenga.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace, Sister to Lily.
Good morning. Ni nyina wa Kimani.
My Kimani's mom. I'm Willie Kimani's mom.
Ni gucokeria Ngai ngatho ni tondu wa hau atukinyithitie na kahe hinya wa kuhota kurugama uguo na tukanyitirirwo na mahoya.
I would like to say thank you to God for this far we have come, that I'm able to stand here and the way you have supported us with prayers.
Ngai atoe hinya na nigetha kiundu kiu gigatuthiranga riria mundu akauma thina tondu riri ndu ingihota kuga no kwira Ngai thengio muno ni tondu ni makionekio.
May God give us strength so that we can be able to recover from this incident.
Thank you. We'll not ask Willie's dad to speak because he's not in a good shape. Continue praying for him. He's here. This is Willie's dad.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Edward Mugabi, brother to Mwenda.
Yes, thank you for that session. Let's clap for the survivors of this. And I know here we have more survivors of police abuse of power from Kenya Champions of Justice. Inueni mikono watu wa Kenya Champions of Justice. Pali muko. All those are survivors that have gone through very difficult things. Some of them have lost their relatives. Some of them have gone through police brutality. And we are so glad that they are here. So right now, I want to invite Mr. Benson Shamala. Mr. Benson Shamala, who is the Country Director, International Justice Mission, to give opening remarks and invite all of us.
Good morning. Seven years like today, it was a Thursday, and our colleague Willie Kimani, our client Joseph Mwenda, and our trusted taxi driver Joseph Miruri, early in the morning they took off to go to Mavoko court. They did not make it back. And so today we come to remember. Today we come to reflect. Today we come to rededicate ourselves as human beings. We've had the pain of the family. And it's not just a one-day pain. It has been a continuous pain. It has been a journey not only to pursue justice in our criminal justice system, but it has been a journey toward healing. And both the families and even staff at International Justice Mission, we are at different stages of that particular journey. And we believe that, God willing, we will be able to reach a time whereby we can look back without shedding tears. That's our prayer. And so I want to really thank each and every one of you for coming to commemorate with us. International Justice Mission works together alongside government agencies to protect people from violence. In Kenya here we started in 2001, and we have been taking up cases where police, law enforcement have injured, maimed, or killed people, and we represent them in court to find justice. Many people saw like, how come we don't know about RJM? I think the case of Willie Kimani, Josephat, and Joseph brought to us who we are. And it's not only the case of Willie Kimani. We have got several other cases that we are representing, families, just like the families of Willie, Joseph, and Josephat. Currently, we have got 74 cases that are active, where police have used excess force to either injure or to kill Kenyans. And we continue pursuing justice for those cases. So today we said we'll come together to remember. We'll come together to reflect. We'll come together to hear from the survivors, because many times the survivors are left out. We don't know the journey that they take. Today we come together to rededicate ourselves to the ideals of justice and fairness. And I just want to appreciate each one of you. I just mentioned some of them members that are here. We have the President of the Law Society of Kenya, Mr. Deuri. Thank you so much for coming, together with the Vice President, Faith Odhiambo. We also have the Director of Witness Protection, Agent. Thank you so much. And as Rebecca said, you played a critical role to the success of this case. We also have the human rights activist, Salome Nduta, all these years, and you never wavered, together with your prosecution team. Thank you so much, Dr. Senior Counsel, who is also present with us, Fred Ojambo. Thank you so much. Different agencies that worked together. I know we'll be taking time just to call you out and just appreciate and say thank you. We are IPOA, Independent Policing Oversight Authority, for the role that you played in this. So thank you so much. We'll be acknowledging more people as they come. Li Fang from OHCR, thank you so much, Madam, for honoring this. We have got representative from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. Thank you so much. Professor Sihanya, thank you, sir, because you stood with this family without even requesting any single cent. Thank you. And so I would just want to say you're welcome to this. We have got people from Internal Affairs Unit who worked. And as I continue mentioning, civil societies from Amnesty, IMLU, Police Reform Working Group, Missing Voices will be acknowledging you as we go by. I just want to say thank you for walking this journey. Allow me to, in my final remarks, to quote what Abraham Lincoln said in a very short speech that he delivered on November 19th, 1863, when he was called upon to dedicate a portion where the soldiers who had fallen to be buried. And so I will not read the whole speech, but just a section of that particular speech, which says, "We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a large sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will no longer remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here." You can paraphrase that and say, we will never forget what Willie, Joseph, and Josephat did and stood for. It is for us, the living, Lincoln continued to say, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they fought here, have thus so far notably advanced. It is rather for us be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from this honored dead we take the increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that this dead shall not have died in vain. And that has been our rallying call at International Justice Mission, that the death of Willie, Joseph, and Josephat will never be in vain, that it will never be in vain. So thank you so much for your coming again, and we look forward to having discussion, deliberation, and reflection on what this case means to us, not only as institutions represented here, but as Kenyans and as humanity. What does that mean to us? And what kind of people ought we be in such a experience that we have seen for 7 good years as the case went on in the public? So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Benson, for welcoming us, all our visitors. I think we'll still have a chance to just honor all of our visitors by name later on. So right now, I want to take this opportunity to welcome one coalition that was formed after Mavoko 3 happened. I want to invite Dimas Kipronov, who is representing the Missing Voices Coalition, to give his remarks. Welcome, Dimas.
Thank you very much. I'd like to adapt the protocols as if they were established in the first place. The Missing Voices Coalition was created as the source of truth in terms of statistics, in terms of the stories, in terms of the names of the people who have suffered from extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. Before Missing Voices, all organizations had their numbers. IMLU had their numbers, Amnesty International had their numbers, Human Rights Watch, for example, had their numbers, and it was difficult for us as a sector to basically paint the picture of the situation in Kenya in terms of extrajudicial killings. And so together, as the Police Reform Working Group, more than 21 organizations, decided that we needed one source of truth where we would have researchers, fact checkers, so that any case of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances would be investigated, researched, and documented. And over the years, we have seen, first of all, a difference in terms of when we speak as a sector, we have the same numbers and figures that we are talking about. More so, the Missing Voices Coalition runs a website, and I would urge you to perhaps look at that website, that also tells the stories, the different stories of the various victims and survivors. So far, what is emerging for us is that one of the stories right now is that it takes too long. Even when an officer is charged, it takes at least 5 or 6 years for the case to be concluded. And we are wondering whether we can urge the judiciary to prioritize cases where police officers are the persons charged, especially for things as serious as murder, as was the case with Willie and his colleagues. The Missing Voices over the years has held community dialogues, bringing together the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, bringing together the DCI, bringing together communities so that we can discuss the issues of unlawful policing, the use of force and firearms, the corruption within our National Police Service. And we hope that by our activities that we can be able to move the needle into, first of all, getting a police service that is professional, accountable, and that is human rights compliant. Today, as the Missing Voices, we'd like to recognize the contributions of the DPP, of the Witness Protection Agency, of the judiciary itself, of our partners, our development partners, and others who have stood with us in terms of trying to get justice for the families and for the victims of unlawful policing. The Willie Kimani case shows us how a person seeking justice can be victimized, and in that process, that person also extends that danger to their counsel. And then there is the taxi driver who really had nothing to do with anything that was happening. And so the dangers of unlawful policing, of corruption within our National Police Service affects us all. Doesn't matter where you are. I'd like to especially mention the lawyers in this case, with the senior counsels here and the Director of Public Prosecutions, who stood with these families, and eventually justice was served. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those remarks. Onto the stage, would like to invite the lovely Isabella to give some remarks from our Police Reforms Working Group.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. The Chief Justice's Office, IJM's Regional President, IJM's Country Director, and your able team, all state agencies in this room, law society officials and senior counsel, development partners, civil society organizations, the family of the Mavoko 3, and all other survivors, all protocols observed, good morning again. This is not the easiest to do, but we move on. We move. Mr. Peter Kiama could not be here today, and he sent me his regards. He said that I say hi to everyone here, and he also gave me his message, which I will read as follows. Today, we join in the celebration and thanksgiving for the journey that has been. We give thanks as we close a chapter of one of the most heinous extrajudicial executions of our time. We jubilate that justice was seen to be done for the murders of lawyer and human rights defender Willie Kimani, his client Joseph Mwenda, and their driver, Joseph Mwiruri. We believe that the journey not only brought to the fore the dark abyss of police criminality in Kenya, but it has also reaffirmed the power of law in affirming fundamental human rights and security of the person. With the judgment, we believe that we are on the right path to promoting police accountability in this country. This 7-year journey has brought tremendous gains to our criminal justice jurisprudence, especially against all institutionalization of extrajudicial executions. We, as the Police Reforms Working Group, remain steadfast in partnering and collaborating towards an enhanced criminal justice system and the respect for fundamental human rights, especially the security of the person. May justice be our shield and defender. I thank you all.
Thank you, Isabella. Another clap for these fighters of justice from the civil society organizations. Indeed, we must say from day one, the civil society was there on the streets. They carried placards and all. Then I was a journalist. I was just watching from the other side of things, but definitely I saw what you did. Right now, I want to invite Senior Counsel, Dr. Fredo Jambo, who was the lead victims counsel in this case. Karibu sana, Senior Counsel. Makofi kwa Prof.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I don't intend to go through the protocol that has been mentioned before, but to recognize all who are here, and particularly those who are victims of police brutality. As a lawyer, ever since I became a lawyer, a young lawyer, that I spent a lot of time in police stations and going after my clients, try to get them out, and I came across a lot of things that were horrible. Because when a police force acts like a gang, then the public are in danger. But it's not just that. I've realized that there are very, very good police people. Clement Mwangi is a very good example, and he is with his many policemen who investigated this matter and stood firm. Let's not just assume that they did their job. It was difficult for them. These men sitting here, it was difficult for them because they were running against a cabal of people who think differently and who think of other people as simple cannon fodder. Those are expendables. When the death of Willie, Josephat, and Joseph, I didn't actually know about it until I got a call from the then president of the Law Society. And he said to me, do you know that there's 3 men have been murdered apparently by policemen? Do you know anything about it? And I said, no, I didn't know anything about it. Well, he told me about it. And he said that they were going to have a march. And I said to him, well, I'll come round and see what I could do. So I joined the march. And I remember walking all the way from the post office down this way up to the where the Supreme Court is now. And as I walked through, my heart was filled with anger. I was truly angry that anyone could do this to anyone else. From what I had heard, that God has made us who we are so that we can look after each other. But when we then treat others as if they were simply items without any worth, then there is something truly satanic about us. And by the time I got to the Supreme Court building, I was very angry. And I think somebody came and said, would you like to say something? And I was very emotional about it. In fact, as emotional as I am now, listening to Willie Kimani's widow speak today, I felt a bit like Willie Kimani's father. And I think the 7 years that we've had with this case was a time for reflection for me. And I'm sure, I would hope so, certainly, that it is a reflection for all of us. That we would realize that each one of us has a responsibility not only to look after those around us, but to confront any evil of this nature, and particularly to confront those who abuse the public trust and public power in this way, and stand up as many of you have stood up. And I thank the IJM for the way in which they have stood up for those who are voiceless, for those who do not have the wherewithal to stand up, those whom the society looks at as if they were just expendable. So it was actually my privilege when I was asked, I didn't ask to be involved in this, but when I was asked to take part in it, I thought it was my greatest privilege to be involved to the extent that I was, in the small way that I was. I really want to thank, first of all, I really want to thank those police officers who investigated this matter and stood firm. Thank you. Thank you. And those who are able and willing to come and give evidence in court. Let's not trivialize this. It's not as easy as it seems. But they stood and did it. And I personally really want to thank them for it. And I also want to thank those who are willing to come and give evidence. Those who, I'm sure, who didn't have the same kind of defense or protection that most of us would have. But they came and they gave evidence. And because of that evidence, we saw justice done. And I just also want to thank you, for all of you in IJM who are willing to follow this tenaciously to the time that we've got to today. So I really want to thank God for the opportunity just to be here to celebrate and commemorate these three men who died ruthlessly and needlessly just because somebody abused power. And I would also like to thank the prosecution for the way in which they also went to this. Nicholas Mutuku really did a brilliant job. And he stood and worked and with his team did a marvelous job. So thank you, Nicholas. So it's really my privilege and my joy to have been asked to be here. I wouldn't have asked for anything less. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Jambo. And one of our values at International Justice Mission is relentless. We say we are relentless. And thank you for just repeating that in this area. So right now, it's my honor to invite a man who has been in the corridor of justice fighting for this case from the prosecution side for 7 years. And this is Mr. Mutuku. Karibu sana. Makofi kwa Mr. Mutuku.
Good morning, everybody. All protocols observed. Allow me to use that because I cannot mention everybody. I would like, first of all, to state saying by that this is my first time to attend this commemoration. I believe to the 7th one. I was not invited in the 1st to the 6th. But I think it was deliberate and well intended. I was the lead prosecutor in this matter. Commemorations are very emotional. They are emotive affairs. And IGM chose to separate me from this kind of emotion. They wanted me to work and deliver. And I thank you for that. Indeed, when Betty Wambua called me this week and told me there is this event, I was asking myself, why now? But I soon realized that it was for the interest of me to work and to avoid coming until this time. And this is a proper time to be with you here to not only commemorate Willie Kimani and the other fallen heroes, also to mourn them, because I wasn't there earlier. It was very difficult in 2016, as you are aware. And we started with the habeas corpus. I was the deputy DPP, and I was thrown into the mix of it. I met councils with ribbons. The three who had not been discovered and there was a lot of pressure to work on that habeas corpus and defend it. But we did our work, and I must say that we got a lot of support from the lawyers on our side, and I must thank them. So I would say, ladies and gentlemen, that today we gather here united in both the grief and remembrance to honor the life and the legacy of our esteemed colleague, Will Kimani. And the other two, Joseph Mwenda and Joseph Mwiruli. These three did not deserve to die. Indeed, Will Kimani and Joseph Mwiruli were collateral. Not that Joseph Mwenda deserved to die. No, not at all. 7 years ago, I would say we suffered a great loss when they were brutally taken from us, being victims of senseless violence. Willie was diligently serving the cause of justice, which he verily believed in. Today we remember his indomitable spirit and sacrifices made in the pursuit of truth. As the lead prosecutor assigned on this case, and I wish to mention that I didn't work alone. I had Alois Kemo, Catherine Mwaniki, and Betty Rubia, who worked with me initially. Alois Kemo and Catherine Mwaniki dropped. I was left with Rubia, whom we pursued this matter to the end. So we stand before you with a heavy heart, burdened by the weight of the responsibility I assumed in seeking justice for our fallen comrade. We faced an arduous journey filled with challenges and obstacles, but we remained steadfast in our pursuit of truth and accountability. It is a testament to the unwavering commitment of our legal fraternity that we brought the rogue police officers responsible for this heinous act to face the consequences of their actions. Willie was not just a lawyer, he was a friend. I knew him. He was pursuing another matter before this happened. For those who know our injustice sector, criminal justice sector, they know the Ruaraka OCS, Mr. Mutua, whose case was also concluded, and Willie Kimani was on it. I worked at that time as a deputy DPP in charge of offense against the person, and this matter was on my desk, and we worked together. He was again a beacon of justice, a tireless advocate for the marginalized and voiceless, and a guardian of the rule of law. I would say he fought fearlessly against corruption, inequality, and abuse of power and police power. His work was a testament to the noble ideas that underpin our legal system: fairness, integrity, and the pursuit of truth and justice. Today, we not only remember his remarkable contributions, but we also recommit ourselves to the principles he held dear. We must continue to fight against justice, standing up against those who abuse their authority and ensuring that no one is above the law. Let us draw the strength from his memory and use it as a catalyst for change, inspiring us to create a society where justice prevails. As we gather here, let us remember that Willie's legacy is not confined to a single tragedy, but rather it lives on through each one of us. We carry the responsibility to protect the rights of the people we serve, to defend the vulnerable, and to never waver in the face of adversity. We owe it to him to continue the work he started, to remain relentless in our pursuit of justice, and to ensure that this sacrifice was not in vain. To the family of the Mavoko 3, to the wife of Willie Kimani, to the father Willie Kimani, the mother, brother of Mwiruri, and the wife of Mwenda, the three fallen heroes, know that we are not alone. You are not alone in your grief. We stand beside you, offering our unwavering support and heartfelt condolences. Your loved ones will forever be remembered as heroes, and more particularly the legacy left by Willie, which will continue to inspire us as we strive for more just and equitable society. I just want at this point to pause here and address an issue that has been raised by the Willie Kimani's window. The victims of crime deserve speedy justice. 7 years, Mzee Kimani come to court and the other relatives of the victims and sit there and listen. But I feel we didn't have to go through that. I'll give you a small breakdown to underscore this. In 2016, we had 13 appearances before court. I mean, the days we appeared before court and did business. 2017, there were about 43 appearances. 2018, we had the least 7 appearances. 2019, we had 32 appearances. 2010, despite the corona pandemic, we had 22 appearances. In 2021, we did a lot and we had 4 appearances. 2022, we had 4, and this year we had 3, until the sentence was read. But that one comes only to 164 working days. I want to take you down to this calculation. 1 year, 365 days and 52 weeks. Courts, and the court we worked before, they work from Monday to Thursday. Those are 4 days per week. So for 164 days, if you calculate the number of days, the number of months the court would have worked, that comes to about 10 to 11 months. So suppose now we went to back-to-back hearing of this case. That is on a daily basis. Perhaps we could have concluded this matter in 2017 or even early 2018. So I speak this, I'm very aware that the judiciary is represented, the ODPP is represented, the president of the LSK is here. What can we do to remedy this situation? Must victims wait for that number of years? Must the accused person suffer for that number of years? And I can tell you, I have evidence. I've prosecuted accused persons who passed on because the case took too long. I've seen, when the matter comes for plea, accused persons hiring the best lawyers in this town, very brilliant lawyers. They have the money to pay, particularly in economic crimes. But as the matter goes by the 3rd year, I see counsels holding brief, and the most senior most who are paid well disappear. And actually, in the worst situations, the accused persons are raising hand. I want to represent myself. In cases where the law does not allow them to represent themselves, or sometimes you have to ask for former briefs to come in aid to assist this accused person. I think this situation can be remedied. First of all, and I will talk about this matter, which ought to have been done in 11 months. Must murder case be heard by judges? Can we raise the jurisdiction of the magistrates to hear cases and dispose these cases as quickly as possible? Can we really look at our legal framework and amend the laws to put a cap and limitation to the matter of days you have to take to try a particular case? Like the law can say, for a murder of this magnitude, we are giving you 18 months. 3, can we give judicial resources to employ more judges? So that when a judge is used to this matter, a matter like this, he is not given another assignment, but this matter only. So that now he can expedite that matter before another assignment is given. Sometimes this matter was just part of the course list where other matters had to be cleared with. So I think something can be done. I'm ready to contribute my part so that victims don't have to wait for quite long and the accused persons don't have to wait for quite long. Justice will be dispensed very speedy. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, Let us honor Willie's memory by renewing our commitment to the cause he held so dear. May his spirit guide us as we navigate the challenges that lay ahead, reminding us that the profound impact of single person can have in shaping the cause of justice. Together, let us ensure that Willie's colleagues' name will forever be synonymous with the courage, integrity, and unwavering pursuit of justice. Before I sit, I must appreciate IJM for your support you gave the prosecution and the office of the DPP. Witness protection, for giving protection to a number of witnesses who are vulnerable. To the two investigators, Clement and Olesina, we worked together very much. We had a lot of discussions. I wish to appreciate Senior Counsel, Professor Ben Sianya, and Janice Muchemi, and Mr. Ogaro. A lot of wisdom flew between us in the course of this trial. I meant to mention that Professor Sianya was my classmate and ex-mate. It was good to meet again in such a trial. Lastly, I wish to say IJM supported me. In fact, I remember when I was recognized by the International Association of Prosecutors as the Prosecutor of the Year 2018, Kiroji, the staff from IJM, accompanied me to South Africa with, of course, my assistant classmate, Tabitha, to receive the award. Thank you so much. I wish to stop here and say, pole sana, the victims, the families, tuko pamoja. Asante.
Thank you, thank you. Another round of applause for Mr. Mutuku. Indeed, he's really spoken very deep thing, and I think justice denied. He said it's justice delayed, justice denied. And yes, indeed, Mr. Mutuku could not invite you when you are prosecuting this case, because we really want all organizations to be as independent as possible, although we support. I'm sure even IPOA will agree that although we work together, we really do not want to interfere with the flow of work. So thank you so much, Mr. Mutuku. So right now, I want to recognize a number of people who have joined. I think Mr. Olesena is here, who was one of the lead investigators in this case. I know police officers cannot come and give you a speech, but we really want to thank them for the work they have done. Makofi kwa Mr. Olesena. I know him and Mr. Clement here. I think you watched the video. Probably Mr. Clement was there, Mwangi. So we want to thank you. And also we have my friend Mr. Saidi Kiprotich. Mr. Saidi Kiprotich, I don't know if I asked Claire here to come and talk about Mr. Said when Willie, Joseph and Josephat disappeared, and how Mr. Said took the team throughout looking for these people who have gotten lost. I don't know. I know I can't thank you, but I know our president will be here to thank all of you. So, karibu sana, Mr. Said. He's just coming. So, I want us, because we started a bit late, so I want us to finish with all this knowledge that we are getting about this case before we take a break. And so, right now, I want to invite Professor Sihanya. Makofi kwa Professor Sihanya. I know he's a teacher of law and a very key person in this case. Karibu sana, Mr. Sihanya. The floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just allow me, please, to just recognize the family. The protocol is as has been stated before. The families of my former student and my former, of course, colleague at the bar, Willie Kimani, Mwenda and Mwiruri. Tunasema pole sana na bado tunasema pole kwa msiba huu. We are very sorry about this, and I was asked to address the question of perspectives from the bar on complexities of trial in complex cases of human rights violations, to highlight the jurisprudential lessons emerging from the judgment, this powerful judgment in Republic versus Leliman and 4 others. So I'll stick to that. It's a very clear brief. What are the complexities? What were the issues, etc., etc.? I think my colleagues have already spoken about the case quite a lot, and there has been a lot of, including video and others, and we know about the case. So let me just focus on the 3 areas of complexity in my view. And I'll also tell you about, in that context, my own personal perspective during this difficult, trying period. It was indeed very trying. It still is trying. Our lives have been lost. They cannot be revived, but at least the judge helped us quite a lot to cope with that terrible loss, those terrible losses. Number one, the complexity on this case was primarily because, and in similar human rights violations or disappearance and death, number one is that this was, and most of the offenses are properly planned. It was almost a perfect crime. Technology was used deliberately. SIM cards were bought for the purpose. And so many transactions were effected here, which made it very difficult to investigate, prosecute, decide. The kind of organization, and you know, please note that we are working here, we are talking about police who know and who have handled murder before, either as perpetrators, as it has emerged in other cases, or as people who assist in dealing with such situations. So it was even using a structure within the police service called SPIV that is established to help protect people, but you use it to go and kill 3 Kenyans. So in terms of technology, in terms of organization, it was almost a perfect crime. So issues of evidence, issues of procedure were going to be very difficult. So let me just go through these 3 one by one. Number one, how do you investigate such an offense? Mr. Clement Mwangi, Mr. Olesina, we really thank you. You went beyond the call of duty. This was extremely complex, and even the judge acknowledges here the complexity of that case. A criminal enterprise, as we used to call it. A murder enterprise, an enterprise designed to do that. And so, as we talk about investigations, I first heard of this issue. It was a Friday evening. I didn't have a class, I went home early to do resting. By 5, 6, I was at home. And then later in the evening, we are in law advocates, we are in an advocates, so many advocates groups. And somebody posts that Advocate Willie Kimani went to court in Mavoko, and it was late in the night. And he can't be reached. I'm sorry to say this. Having read a lot about murder, and throughout my life, I've been traumatized by murder, because most of my younger life I spent with my father mourning the assassinations of Mboya, JM, and others until he died. And I've always hated people who believe that the best way to solve anything is to kill anybody. So I just had a sixth sense. So I said, God, sorry, this guy may be dead. This former student of mine may be dead. Can't be traced. In Kenya, in the circumstances we have had, this disappeared and they disappeared and they killed. And IJM telling me they have at least 74 cases they're still dealing with. I said, I'm sorry, but this person may be dead. And we started working the phones. I didn't sleep. We called so many members in the LSK, including the then president, that we must do something about this. Monday, habeas corpus application. We can't wait in case we don't have him by that time. So many of us, and I'm very proud of the young advocates especially, whom we worked with. And I knew many of them have been my students or are in my students in the master's and PhD programs. And some were LLB programs. And we said, we have to do this for Willie, Kimani, Mwenda, and Miruri, and we have to do this for Kenya. And for even ourselves, these are people who are doing their work. Even for selfish reasons, any of us could be doing their work and you are killed in it. So even for nothing else, even if you don't care about other people's justice, just think of even about yourself. So we said, no, this one we're going to spend all the resources we have to do it. So that's why you could see that during the demonstrations, we were there, during the Supreme Court meeting, and we said we must, as lawyers, the main thing we must do is bring habeas corpus application now, not tomorrow. And some of us were also very emotional about it, and still are. So that complicated the investigation issue. In fact, in the early days, there used to be a talk of, is there a smoking gun? Whom do you, why had you start the investigation, etc., etc. There were so many issues there. I think I can go then to the issue of the question of victims, witnesses and victims. Who are going to be the witnesses? As you saw in the video, you had to now start with the little scraps you have. The border person and that note on tissue paper, etc. You had to do little by little, and they really helped the investigators. What is the role of victims? Please know this is a very serious area of complexity, and the judge has helped quite a lot. This case has helped quite a lot. There was even a ruling on the role of victims, because we said victims were never participants in a criminal trial. Never. It was about prosecution, the state, and the accused. But then we have the Victim Protection Act, and we have 2010 Constitution, and we said we must use it to the full. So there was even an application that wanted to dismiss all of us, representatives of the family, all of us, NSK, and we argued it. We said, bring it on. We argued it. We succeeded. That case has been used even on appeal, has been accepted, the ruling by the judge, that victims, we argued in this, like this in court, as victims and survivors, we are not just English boys who are supposed to be seen and not to be heard. We have a voice, and we must be heard in this matter. And it was accepted. That's a principle. I know so many people, even so many lawyers, I told us you are going the wrong way, it will not work. But we said, let's try. And we tried, and we succeeded, and it's being used. I'm very proud of that. And therefore, these issues of witnesses and witness protection and victims protection, we really thank also the Witness Protection Agency for doing the best, because there were real threats. Then, of course, third is the prosecution issue. And my former classmate and very good friend, Mr. Nicholas Latia Mutuku, led a very serious team in prosecution. Let me just tell you the truth. Historically, we had generally from the bar, we used to have a very negative attitude about the police, the investigation processes, about prosecution. And here I saw that we have police officers, we have prosecutors who want to do the right thing and go beyond the call of duty. And it changed my attitude that we still have, as Senior Counsel Ojambo said, we still have some serious officers in the police service and in the prosecution who know that at the end of the day you need to go beyond the call of duty. It's not just ordinary business to tick the boxes, no. And they did. Betty and others. And there was a very serious IJM team that supported this process. Logistics, administration, and the lawyering aspect. Then last, because at first there was even the debate that we had, because this matter went through, is it 4 judges, huh? 4 judges and 1 magistrate. At one point there was 2 magistrates. There was an issue of whom do you prosecute? Do you go for plea bargaining with some now that the evidence is difficult to get, etc., etc.? And then the Lord of Moses, the Lord of Justice, Amos, the prophet of justice. The Lord of Amos came up and gave us the 5th accused, who spoke like a bird, like a suku. Who spoke like a suku the bird, and who helped open so many vistas which we didn't know about. And of course, even in court now, he was trying to change the story by changing names, but the game was in, and we praised God, the Lord of Amos, the prophet of justice. So then lastly is the question of the complexities also in terms of independence of the judiciary, independence of magistrates and judges. And as Mr. Mutuku said, how much workload they have. I've mentioned that we had about 4 judges. There was Justice Rose, who came from Bungoma. Yeah, she came to relieve Justice Sisi was the main judge who handled the matter. But there's a time she was also busy elsewhere with government work, and there was a Justice Rose who came to do some of the work at one point. Then there was another judge who also helped us, who did also the questions of some aspects of habeas corpus, etc. There were so many, at least 4 judges, and therefore you could see the question was, will these people declare a mistrial? Will they say that no, we have not been tried by one judge, whatever it is? So there can be a lot of complexity that I think that we need to give judges who are handling these murder cases less work to do. Then finally here there was also the question of the judge that Jesse Lesit, who was handling the matter for most of the time, was appointed Court of Appeal judge during this process. And then the question was, what do you do? Do you now stop and start again? And this judgment has dealt with this issue in serious detail. And this judgment is written that in a way that for you to appeal it, we just wish you luck. On every major issue that was raised here by them, the judge really was very careful. Even on these issues of victims and their representations, the issue of the threshold on evidence, the issue of a judge of the Court of Appeal who had started work as a High Court judge, she has dealt with it in a very, very careful way. So I want to end by saying that there are lessons which have been learned. Cases like these are still there. There are so many other Kenyans who have been disappeared and who have been killed in such circumstances. We pray for their families so that they may also find justice. And for me, finding justice here is both about punishing those who have committed these offenses through the legal process and also compensating the families. Because, and especially through the state. Because even if they are miscreants, they were not doing the matter for the state should still be responsible. But in some cases, some of these are repeat players in these games. Some do it for themselves, some do it for wakubwa, and the language some of them were using was like this: bump that guy off. It's just like it's just like some, not even a phone. It's just some useless tissue paper. Throw them off. To killing a person. If you read the literature on extrajudicial killing, including the rapporteur's report by the United Nations on Kenya, Philip Alston and others, they treat this matter, those who kill, treat this matter as very light. Let's throw that tissue paper the other side. So I want to say that just 1 second, I consult the answer of it. Oh, sorry. Oops. So, okay, so I think we want to say this. Many of us are consulting on this, are still available to do some work on this issue. That's one of the issues I wanted to confirm with Senior Counsel. I've started writing a paper on this issue, and I'm inspired also by the work that has been done on Robert Touko, the work has been done on Tomboya, J.M. Kariuki, the work that was done on Julie Ward. Julie Ward, who also died in some context like that, and whose parents tried to pursue this matter up to the time that both parents died a week ago. And we will do our writing and we will consult so that the matters are accurate, especially with the people who participated in this, so that you represent this properly while not blaming the police as an institution generally, but relevant individuals, and working on measures that can be used into the future to address this. I can only end by saying that we thank everybody who participated, the family, the IGM and others whom I've already mentioned, LSK and the lawyers, among others, the judges and magistrates, and lastly, a luta continua, Victoria Esata. The quest for justice, especially, and human rights and constitutional democracy continues. Victory is guaranteed. Victory is certain. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sihanya, for schooling us in matters of law. You can only expect that from a teacher of law. So thank you so much for just unpacking this for everyone who is around. That is really helpful. So next I want to invite one, I've called so many people, but one of the people who stood with this case from day one is the media. And so I want to invite a media representative, and this is Francis Moredi. Francis Moredi, is Group Digital Editor, Radio Africa Group, where he works until now, and is also a member of the Kenya Editors Guild. Karibu sana, Mr. Francis, and tell us about the media and how you're involved in this case.
Thank you very much, Kariz. I call Mr. Kariuki Kariz because he's my colleague, former colleague, and a friend for a very long time. The family and all protocols observed. Good afternoon. I will not repeat who I am. Basically, I'm Francis Moredi. I work for Radio Africa Group. And my role here is very simple. And it is simple because we all know the role of the media. We interact with the media each and every day. And when I talk about the media, I'm talking about the print, I'm talking about radio, I'm talking about TV, and of late, the digital platforms. And this is where websites and social media platforms come in. And if there is a case that the media has followed so closely in the history of Kenya, then it is the case of lawyer Willy Kimani, his client Josephat Mwendwa, and the taxi driver Joseph Mwiruri. And this is from the time we got information that they have disappeared. Of course, media was there on the ground. And then the stories came, the reports came about bodies being discovered at Oldonyo Sabuk River. We deployed people there. And this case came at a time when the cases of extrajudicial killings were at the peak. Those who have followed this will know very well that the media was highlighting these cases a lot, and there were actually very many. So we gave this story a big spotlight, and mostly because there was huge public interest. So what did the media do in this particular case? We all know the role of the media, but the media helped in building public interest by drawing public attention of what had happened. A magnitude or a big crime had happened, and the public wanted to know what is this and what has happened. And this is where the media came in. It provided a better understanding of the magnitude of the crime, and this is because the key suspects were police officers. And from my experience, and more so of late because we are following a lot of analytics, unlike before where we are not able to easily get what consumers or what our readers are going for. Nowadays, we are able to monitor through analytics and the screens we have back in our offices what people are reading and from where and the numbers. And what we have noticed is that there's a huge public interest when it comes to cases related to police, no matter how big or small it is. And the interest is even bigger when a policeman or a policewoman is a suspect. So you can see if we publish, we look at the analytics and you will see the numbers going up. And now this was a case that was being highlighted a lot. You could now see the public interest. So the media created a more informed and engaged society. And I even don't think there is anybody today across the country who doesn't know about this particular case. And it was also picked by the international media because of the massive coverage that was being given here locally. The international media, including large papers like New York Times and Guardians, they picked it. And we can all go and see what they did and what they have been doing, including the judgments. So the media also advanced the public knowledge of the evidence and arguments of the parties. And in this particular case, one unique thing that the media gave a lot of attention because there was a lot of questions that were coming from the public is the use of technology in criminal justice. So we did a lot of explainers, like the issues of SIM cards, how people how crime investigations, how investigations can be used, how SIM cards can be used in investigations. Other stories that we have seen attract a lot of attention is anything touching on mobile phones and the use of SIM cards. So you can see there is element of policemen and there's element of use of mobile phone. So the interest was huge and the media did a lot of trying to explain to the public all these issues. And at the end of the day, we believe that the media helped in the promotion of justice. And we know that open justice can be very good when it comes to deterring future crimes. In many cases, we have seen media being a good source of information to investigators. We all know that media houses deploy a lot of resources when it comes to investigations. Though the investigators, like the police, are not bound by what the media does, some of the investigations we do help or give tips to the investigators, because many cases we have seen investigators trying to find out, okay, what else do you have related to this? So even as the investigators do their own work independently, the media does a lot of investigations. And this is one case that the media investigated a lot. We went to where they disappeared, to the containers, to wherever we were there. We went to the families, interviewed the families, and that helped to make the public understand what exactly was happening. And And we have also seen some cases whereby the media is used even to identify suspects, like the use of CCTV, where the police release. This wasn't the case here, but again, we all know that that has been happening. That is how media sometimes is used in the criminal justice process. So what are the lessons? The lessons from this particular case and other cases we have covered, we have learned that the media is a very big player when it comes to criminal justice. And this means that as a country, we must strengthen the participation of media when it comes to criminal justice. The ODPP will do their work, the judiciary will do their work, the police will do their work, the civil society and other stakeholders will do their work. But also, the link between all this, what these institutions are doing, the link of that and the public, it is the media. And if at all an institution is doing a lot, but it is not explaining to the public what it is doing, there is assumption out there is that you are not doing anything or you are not doing much. As I end, I think my call is that the police, the judiciary, the civil society groups and other players, we should look at media as collaborators or partners when it comes to criminal justice. We should look at each other as bodies that are helping each other to achieve our goals. And we all know that the media shapes the work, or the media shapes systems. So the stronger and independent the media is, the stronger the systems we will have as a country. And we all know that if we have a strong judiciary, we have a strong and independent ODPP, and a strong and independent police service, then it will become very easy to realize justice that we are all craving for. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for keeping us informed. I would say that during this whole period, my mother used to have updates real time, sometimes even before I did or what was happening. And I think the last and most important goal was allowing Kenyans to see that justice is really possible. So thank you very much. Next on stage, I would like to invite our IJM Regional President, Africa and Europe, to come and give his remarks. Welcome, Andy.
Distinguished guests, families and survivors of those who have fallen at the hands of police abuse of power, ladies and gentlemen, all other protocols respectfully observed. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm very conscious that I take this stage actually after a great many people and after a great many heroes of justice who really fought in this case. And I'm truly honored to share the same stage as those who have come before me on this stage. My job is chiefly to mark this occasion and to thank them. Today we mark the 7th commemoration of the killing of International Justice Mission lawyer Willie Kimani, client Josephat Mwenda, and trusted taxi driver Joseph Muyururi. But this 7th commemoration is different because it falls after the conclusion of a 7-year-long criminal trial for these murders. I am especially honored to be in Kenya to mark this day and in the presence of individuals and organizations, government, civil society, and media who tirelessly worked to ensure that justice was achieved in this case. As we all know, the court in its judgment last year convicted 3 officers and a police informer for these murders. The 4 were sentenced in February, with the first accused paying the highest price for murder under Kenyan law. This is a momentous moment for police accountability in the country. As the High Court and the Law Society of Kenya closed the Willie Kimani case file last Wednesday, Justice Kimondo observed that the case is a valuable turning point. It sets legal precedents which will pave the way to ending police violence in Kenya. Of particular interest to IJM is the court's determination on the involvement of the accused Sylvia Wanjiko. Sylvia's participation was limited to manning the reporting desk, but on that day, she deliberately omitted to record in the occurrence book that the three were being held at the station. And the judge noted that if Sylvia had recorded that entry, this story may have ended differently. For some context, Justice Jessie Lessett heard testimony from 46 prosecution witnesses, 34 defense witnesses, and typed over 6,114 pages. During this trial, 117 exhibits were submitted. The judge was shown DNA samples, a confession statement from one of the accused, who gave a chilling account of the his participation in the crime. CCTV footage from the National Police Service Integrated Command Center, mobile phone data analysis, and other key evidence. The judge observed that this was the longest case she had ever heard. This was the culmination of tireless and professional work done by an innumerable number of investigators and prosecutors working in the shadows to ensure a triable case. Whilst to most of us, this marks the end of a 7-year-long struggle for justice, for the families, the journey of reflection and healing will last a lifetime. While justice may have been served in court, the families do continue to live in the reality of having lost their loved ones. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the respective families of Willie, Joseph, and Josephat for your tremendous bravery and for your courage during this season. And I want to assure you of our continued commitment to honor and remember these three. I would like to officially express my gratitude to each one of you who played a part for ensuring a just outcome was achieved in this case. IJM recognizes how all of you brought your experience, your passion, your energy, and your intensity from day one until the final determination. IJM acknowledges that the milestones achieved in this case would not have been possible without great collaboration and partnership among the different players in the criminal justice system, civil society, media, and the international community. We are grateful, among others, to the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, the then Flying Squad and Homicide Unit, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Independent Police Oversight Authority, the Internal Affairs Unit, the Witness Protection Agency, and the judiciary who ultimately heard and ensured a fair trial. We recognize the hard work of leadership and officers who went the extra mile to ensure that there was a just conclusion. And specifically, I would like to appreciate officers Saidi Kiprotich, Robert Owina, Nicholas Solicina, and Clement Mwanga, and the team that stood for a just cause throughout the investigations period, tirelessly working behind the scenes to ensure that the culprits were arrested and charged. IJM recognizes the Office of the Director of the Public Prosecutions, and special thanks to Special Prosecutor Professor Nicholas Mutuku, I apologize, and also to Ms. Betty Rubia, who for 7 years led an extraordinary prosecution. IJM recognizes the Law Society of Kenya for their consistent support since June 2016. We don't take lightly the significant roles that were played by senior advocates, Professor Ojiambo, Professor Sinyana, Mr. Ongaro, and others. For long hours daily over the course of 6.5 years, they selflessly supported and represented families at the trial. We're cognizant that it's through their efforts that the court recognized the role played by victims' counsels in criminal trials. As we heard earlier, this is a very, very important precedent in that respect. It's a critical ruling that will go a long way to ensuring that victims are given an opportunity to participate fully in criminal trials. We're grateful to civil society for tirelessly pushing to a conclusion in this case. We want to thank our partners at the Police Reforms Working Group for staying on this case from day one and pushing police reforms and for implementation of the Torture Act and also the Coronary Services Act. Out of this case, as we heard earlier, the Missing Voices Coalition was formed, and it tracks cases of police killings and enforced disappearances. We want to thank Missing Voices for setting aside June 23rd as a commemoration day for the Mavoko 3 deaths and pushing for more accountability in many cases of extrajudicial killings. We are really encouraged that the Missing Voices Coalition has resolved to continue marking this day as the Day of Delayed Justice. It's a day when we will push for justice in other cases. IJM recognizes the media for their consistent coverage of this trial. Indeed, the media played a critical role in ensuring that the truth of how these perpetrators plotted what we heard was nearly a perfect crime and made sure that the criminal enterprise and what had happened was laid bare. Through the media, the public became aware of how these three were abducted, illegally held for hours, killed, and then dumped in a river. The media also ensured timely updates on the progress of the case. It's our belief that this is the most widely covered case in the history of Kenya. So thank you, media. Once again, we want to honor the family of the victims who remained steadfast in your quest for justice. Your determination, your persistence, and your perseverance acted as a real motivation to all of those who are working for justice in this case. What was achieved together through the many efforts of those who worked on this case truly represents the very best of interagency collaboration and partnership, as we worked together for the good of this wonderful country, building protection from police abuse of power. Prior to 2016, very few police officers had ever been convicted for murder in Kenya. But in the past 6 years, at least 45 police have been convicted of murder or manslaughter charges. So this really does convincingly demonstrate that Kenya's judicial system can and will deliver justice in cases of police abuse of power. When our colleagues and friends were violently murdered, IJM considered whether the dangers of continuing this work here were just too high. Instead, we pressed on, and 7 years later, I am proud that IJM, aided by our partners in this room, have made such significant progress in ensuring police accountability. Words really are not enough to express my gratitude and respect for the courageous and tenacious IJM team here. I'm happy to announce that IJM will soon be launching another program, a Violence Against Women and Children program, and that will help us to build more protection for vulnerable women and children from sexual violence. The Mavoko 3 trial has concluded, and we know that a lot more remains to be done. And we're taking on the learnings and the lessons, and we will make sure that we use these milestones as stepping stones in our push for enhanced police accountability. It's worth noting that we have over 70 active cases of this nature now ongoing in court. Professor Mutuka reminded us earlier of the words of Martin Luther King, that justice too long delayed is justice denied. Because every day of delay represents another day's license for those who believe that they are above the law and cannot be held to account. And more than that, every day of delay means anguish for families, friends, and loved ones who've been left behind. This challenge of delayed justice does need to be addressed. The 7 years that were taken to conclude Mavoko 3 is a very long time, despite the very best efforts of the judiciary. We heard earlier from Professor Mutuku some concrete suggestions as to how things could be speeded up. IJM will continue to work with the relevant stakeholders to ensure the timely conclusion of serious criminal cases. And finally, in commemoration of our friends and in pursuit of justice for all cases, we are calling for the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance and the criminalization of enforced disappearance in Kenya. Thank you.
Whoa, another clap for Andy. I think he summarized our hearts at IJM, and we really value every one of us who is seated here, even the justice centers. Where are comrades for the justice center? Where are they? Viva, comrades, viva. Yeah, and it's as a result of this case that the justice center movement started. And we just are grateful that this movement has spread. And when IPOA wants to go to the field to get witnesses, they go to Justice Center and all these things. So we are so grateful for that. And so right now, I want to invite, initially the Chief Justice was supposed to be here, but she's out of the country, so she sent her apologies. But in the legal profession, we have so many people who can come and represent us ably. And we are praying that Mr. Mutuku will be a professor soon. Mr. Mutuku, that is a prayer from God. So it's my pleasure to invite the LSK president, Mr. Eric Theuri, to come and give us his remarks. Karibuni sana, Mr. Theuri.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I see that there's a particular trend with IJM events. Mutuku has just been christened a professor. And I've just been ambushed to step in on behalf of the Chief Justice. And the only reason why I could not say no is just like Professor Mutuku. I cannot say no to those kind of wishes from the IJL. I'm extremely delighted to have been requested to step in on behalf of the Chief Justice, not for the reasons that I have indicated, but really because of the significance of this occasion, especially to the mandate that the Law Society has and the challenges that as Law Society and our members we continue to face in the course of duty. The death of Willie Kimani, his client, and the taxi driver was a manifestation of a system that had failed. A justice system that could not give hope to those who appeared before it. And in a way, it gave all of us a challenge and an opportunity to come together. And I remember those days, as Professor Sihanya has spoken about, in terms of the unity that it brought to the entire legal profession, to the prosecutors, to the police, to the investigators, to the advocates, and even the court to a certain extent. We all came together and we realized today it is the three of them, but tomorrow it could be any of us. And that the system was broken and we needed to do something to fix it. But even as we were trying to do something to fix it, it was important for us to speak in a unified voice. I think there was, I remember those days for the, when there was the habeas corpus application, really the cooperation that was there between the office of the DPP and the advocates for the Law Society who had made that application, and the advocates for IJM, looking at the data that had come from Safaricom and saying this data is inadequate, we need more, you know, and pushing the court, and the court giving orders to summon then, was it Michael Joseph, or to summon the CEO of Safaricom, and all of us working together for a common united cause. And it wasn't just for Willie Kimani or Mwenda or Mwiruri. It was indeed for all of us. Because at that point, everyone was Willie. Everyone was Mwenda. And each and every one of us was Mwiruri. And I appreciate the work that the lawyers in this process, and when I talk of the lawyers, I mean those in DPP, those in police, those for the defense, and those for the victims. Because arising out of the decision of Willie Kimani, a very, very useful jurisprudence in terms of victim participation, in terms of the place of technology in detecting and preventing crime, and also just the many policy directions that were undertaken. The question of command within the police that had to be addressed through subsequent legislative interventions, the decision to charge guidelines, all those things that arose from this. And more importantly, the silent voices of mothers whose children were disappearing. The silent voices of children who were missing their parents, be it their fathers, be it their mothers, through police brutality. All that came to the limelight as a result of this. And also for those of us who are still in leadership, those of us who are working in the various sectors, I think it is important that we harness that spirit of togetherness that we experienced during Willie Kimani's period, because this fight is far from over. It is far from over. In fact, today morning I was just talking to a prosecutor trying to, prevent an advocate being arraigned in court. So that's why for a considerable period of time I was outside this room. So we know that it goes on, and it goes on every day. And I want to also challenge those of us who work within the office of the DPP. You have an important duty under Article 157 to always act in public interest. All of us, irrespective of where we stand, we took an oath to serve and protect justice. really ask our colleagues within the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to play their role, to be the safeguard that the Constitution envisages them to be between tyranny and the rule of law. But where they fail, we will not, as the Law Society, waver in our obligation to keep on reminding them that they have an obligation, and for as long as we are there, that we will zealously ensure that they live to that mandate. So let me, in a very special way, also recognize my very good friend Said and his team of investigators and the entire police. Of course, you know, we always have a few. You recognize the role that you continue to play. We know that there are a few bad apples, but it is common in any society. There must be a few bad people. So we continue to work together with well-meaning police officers and the administration to get out the few that then give the force, or is it now a service? A bad name. I want to also, in a very special way, although we have done this, but to just thank the family of the victims, those who have seen justice, those whom justice has not been served. I know the Law Society is working together with the mothers of victims of police brutality, and we will be announcing in the coming days the kind of actions that we're going to be taking. But for even though the system has failed them, for the fact that they still believe that we can find a way, that we can find justice, we can find reparations, and we can find an acceptance within the society that the system has failed and it needs to be corrected. For the faith and the unwavering, enduring hope that you have had in the system of justice, despite it failing you over and over again, we just want to thank you for that. And I think they deserve a round of applause. Because it is that hope, it is that belief that gives us the motivation to know that and to believe that the work that we are doing is an important work in the society. So I want to end my remarks by reminding you of the words of Wangari Maathai when she famously gave us that story of the hummingbird. It might be a little bird, and for those who did not know the story, perhaps I can recite it. There was, not in so many words, but there was this fire in the forest, and all the animals were outside watching the fire as it consumes the forest. And this hummingbird decided that it is going to do something about it. And it kept going to the river, picking water with its beak and dropping it on the fire, and doing that so many times. And every animal was looking at it and asking it, "You are so little. Your beak is so small. Those tiny droplets of water will not do anything." But the hummingbird did not stop. It continued doing that, and it looked at them and it told them, "I am doing the best I can." So it's one individual doing the best that they can. And I want to ask you, all of us, in memory of Willie, in memory of Mwenda, in memory of Mwiruri, let's do all we can to ensure that there's justice in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dauri, LSK President. We want to acknowledge the law students who are present here. Thank you so much for coming. I'm aware Chair UON is here and Chair KU. We'll surely not shy away from addressing the root causes, and we are going to challenge the status quo together. Next session, we started a bit late, so we strive to keep you here until latest 10 minutes past 1, if you indulge us, because the next session is really important. We shall have a panelist discussion for 30 minutes where we are going to be setting the agenda beyond this commemoration. So there is a cup of tea, which we were supposed to take at 10 o'clock, but feel free. If you're feeling very hungry, grab something and come into the hall as we set up the stage. So in the meantime, I will invite our able poet Javan to give us a presentation for 5 minutes as we set up the stage.
Yeah, feel free to grab a cup of coffee, tea, stretch. I know you've sat for a long time, but this is definitely a very critical discussion that is coming up from all the actors in the justice system, DCI, IPOA, prosecution team, civil society. So all of us are gathering in this next session. So let us grab that cup of coffee before we sit.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
You are ready with the poem? No, let's perform.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, and ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this to attention and ask everyone to take their seats.
Kwa paro kama wok talawa nene. 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 Pinyo bagini gik pinyo makika wan katopodo kilal wamako badika wan katopodo kilal wamako badika wan katopodo kilal wamako badika wan katopodo kilal wamako badi tigo kitingo chike malo wo wakitingo duondi malo tigo kitingo chike malo wo wakitingo duondi malo masira mopongo pingi to biro kadho kawan katopodo kilal wamako badi kawan katopodo kilal wamako badi yele mama gocho yele mama gocho yele mama gocho yele mama gocho. Kwa paro kama wok talawa nene. 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 Gik pinyo bagini gik Tiyo maki kawan kato podo kilan. Wamako badi 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 badi. Tigo kitingo chike malo malo wo wakitingo duondi malo malo. Tigo kitingo chike malo malo wo wakitingo duondi malo malo. Masira mopongo pingi to biro kadho kawan kato podo kilan. Wamako badi kawan kato podo kilan. Wamako badi 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 badi. Yele 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 mama gocho. 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 Kwa paro kama woku dalawa nene. Kwa paro kama woku dalawa nene. Kwa paro kama woku dalawa nene. Kwa paro kama woku dalawa nene.
Ladies and gentlemen, so would like to continue with the session. Yeah. Could I request Madam Penina Kome to come to the front, please? And then the representative from IPOA. And then Mr. Okal Mwangi. Thank you, Madam Uya. Yes.
Did you call or I'm just coming?
No, you're coming. You're very welcome. Please have a seat. Then Madam Tabitha, please, karibu, have a seat. So, and then our former Chief Justice, Bwana Eric, please also join us on the panel. Professor Sihanya, welcome. And then Mr. Said, Director Operations, DCI. Please take to the podium. Welcome, it's a bit tight. Mr. Said? I guess we can proceed and then he'll join us.
So, Ketch, I work at IPOA. I'm glad to be here to share in these discussions and also to to mark the Mavoko 3's passing.
Good afternoon. I'm Penina Kome, wife to the late Martin Kome, the ex-Lualaka OCS case. I'm also the sitting chairperson of Kenya Champion for Justice. This is a group of survivors of police abuse of power who have undergone legal and moral support through IJM to seek justice.
Good afternoon. My name is Tabitha Owia, Senior Assistant DPP, currently manning the Civil Rights Desk. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Ben Sihanya. I teach intellectual property and consumer law at the University of Nairobi Law School. I work Sihanya Advocates and I do mentoring. Thank you.
Good afternoon all. Kiprotich Saidi Mohammed, the Director of Operations, DCI Headquarters.
Good afternoon, everyone. Eric Theory, President of the Law Society.
Thank you very much. My distinguished panel, thank you very much for introducing yourselves. And today, as we commemorate Mavoko 3, we want to see what lessons we can carry forward from the occurrences of June 23rd, 2016, and from the judgment we've had from the court and the presentations we've had this morning. We'd like to see to what extent institutions that are here can carry on some of the lessons and can make access to justice better. So I'll start by asking a question, posing a question to Tabitha from ODPP. And I'll just ask that in the mandate of ODPP to institute and undertake criminal prosecutions, there are some of the progressive principles that we had have come from the judgment of this case. There are certain guidelines that have come out. What can you say about, what guidelines would you share with us that have come out that will guide prosecution and that will guide determination of cases such as this?
I think a lot has been said by the previous speakers, but some of the issues I want to point out, some of the principles that come also enshrined in the Constitution under the ODPP mandate, Article 157. These are impartiality, rules of natural justice, the need to serve the cause of justice and prevent abuse of a legal process and public interest, and promotion of constitutionalism. But there are certain emerging practices that the ODPP has embraced, and they have worked very well, and particularly interagency collaboration. What you have seen represented by the previous speakers is a representation of all the stakeholders having had a role to play in the Willie Kimani case. Interagency cooperation. We start with the state agency. The prosecution could not have gone far if they did not work hand in hand with the Witness Protection Agency, with IPOA, with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and at the same time, with the Witness Protection Agency to protect witnesses. We worked very closely with IJM. I do not think it was going to be an easy journey without the logistical presence of the IJM. That support was very, very important. It was fundamental. And you can also see our media playing a very key role, keeping the public updated of what is going on, and therefore managing the public expectations. So those are some of the principles that come out, and they have been actually enshrined even in they've played out even in the ruling or in the final judgment, that if we continue in that manner, then we shall go a long way in managing accountability of police, bringing the rogue police to account. I must say that the ODPP civil rights mandate and the IPOA mandate we cannot work without the other stakeholder agencies. And we thank you so much, our partners and our stakeholder partners, for just being there and giving us that support that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Tabitha. Thank you for bringing out an important aspect of partnership and collaboration between investigation and prosecution agencies. And I'd just like to ask from IAU's perspective, how did you see that partnership and collaboration play out in investigation of this case? And what do you see as promises for the future? What was IAU's role?
Thank you very much, Madam Ann. You forgot to introduce me. My name is George Mwangi Okal. Currently, I'm heading Legal Affairs at Internal Affairs Unit. Internal Affairs Unit is a department within the National Police Service, established under Section 87 of the National Police Service Act. Our key mandate is to receive and investigate police misconduct. So, in this case, I've been asked to our role in Willie Kimani case. The first institution to initiate investigation was Internal Affairs Unit, because I remember in that morning of 2016, when the Inspector General by then, Mr. Boynet, called our director, Mr. Leo Nyongesa, the retired, that there was an information that a lawyer from IJM and some 3 others went missing, and it was being alleged that there were involvement of the police. So the only institution that was to come in and give and establish truth of the matter was the Internal Affairs Unit. So immediately investigators were dispatched to Mavoko, and on reaching Syokimau, we found IJM officers there. I remember we found Miss Omaida, Umazi. We had also IPOA team was also on the ground. Journalists were there. The situation was very tensed, and we ordered the officers who were around to open the container where it was being alleged these guys were kept. So immediately they started taking pictures, and that is how we started to initiate the investigations and interrogating officers. It is from that moment that by then the information was very scanty. But I think I had border people being mentioned. Those people were very key at the beginning to us, because they're the people who made us to open the case. Because the officers there could not, because they're the people who made us to open the case. Because the officers there could not give us the right information. And also, it was said by the Radio Jumbo man that some of the information they got from the officers, some police officers who are not, who are amazed by what happened, confidently gave us information. And that is how we came to unravel this matter. Because at the beginning, there was some denial that police were not involved. So when we conducted our investigation for almost 3 days, we gave our findings and recommendation to the Inspector General. We identified the potential officers who were involved, and we felt we should be made accountable, but we also recommended a thorough and proper investigation to be carried out. And that is how we roped in the DCI, and the flying squad came in. Because it was so much complex, as it was said, and the pressure was coming from all over. So the DCI came in under the stewardship of Mr. Kiprotich, who took now over from Internal Affairs Unit. So this has not been mentioned, and that is how the key role, because we are the people who initiated and the people who confirmed that these people were being held in that container. And there was that border person who had that toilet, that paper, who gave us a key information to come and to come and show that indeed these people were there. So that is the key role we played, and we made sure that we walked the journey with IJM until justice was done. Because even as Mr. Kiprotich and his team were investigating, it was still our obligation as a unit, as an oversight body, to ensure that everything was done in a proper way. Yeah, that is some of the things we did. So from that collaboration, we learned a lot. We learned a lot that we can solve so many things when we come together. We also learned that we need to do our work professionally to restore confidence from the institutions. You've heard from speakers that, even from the professor, that investigation changed his mindset, how the police conduct themselves. Because the fraction we are talking about is just a small fraction. The police is composed of almost over 100,000 police officers who are doing excellent work. But just this small percentage has to be dealt with. And that is how Internal Affairs Unit, IPOA, came into existence. So I really thank IJM for their collaboration. That collaborative approach made us to work tremendously and ensure that justice was served to the family, and also as a lesson was set for even the police officers themselves, that you cannot do something and escape with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to just emphasize a little more on the question of investigation, and I can hear the good work that was done by IAU. And from DCI's perspective, what made it work? We've seen very many cases. They're not as profiled as this one was profiled. What made it work? Was it a case of the publicity around it? Was it state funding? But it was very successful. What lessons can you give for similar cases?
Okay, thank you. First of all, from the outset, let me just mention here in this room that members of the DCI and, of course, the entire National Police Service deal with cases, probably not as publicized as this one, on a daily basis. And they work tirelessly behind the scenes. Most of them, like this group here, Kina Olesena, they are the unsung heroes, many, many untold stories. But for this particular case, from the beginning, the investigators were weighed down first from the weight of public opinion. You know, for so long, police have been caricatured as these bumbling, you know, incompetent buffoons. But we are weighed down by public opinion. Will they really crack this case? One. Two, we had the pressure, and the investigators had the pressure of dealing with a foe or an adversary who knew them too well, their fellow officers who know how to cover their tracks. There was political pressure. There was pressure from LSK. Remember us and the former director, Mr. Mohoro, and the former director, IB, Mr. Karaoke, being hauled to the High Court and had Kinabuo pin purple ribbons on our suits. So there was pressure from the media. And the trick I think that this team used was they closed out all these noise and concentrated on the task at hand professionally. Personally, something I couldn't mention throughout the case, my wife comes from Tharaka-Nithi, very close to where Kina Mwenda comes from. It's a place called Mokodhima, I think they know. And you know, my wife was emotionally also, you know, invested in that. And for members of the male species who are in this room, they can attest when Mama calls, "Mumefika wapi na hiyo case?" Like, now you are my boss. Like, but so, on a light note, so I think what the challenges they had was to manage the public expectation, the cynicism, okay, the political. I think it was discussed even in Parliament, and stick to the work at hand. One. Number two, using whatever scrap of evidence they got to the fullest. They had some lucky breaks, you know, very lucky breaks, I can say. But seeing what other people don't see. And ultimately putting on blinkers. It's very hard to investigate a member of your own family if you are told as we are saying, as Africans, if you are told your uncle is a sorcerer, ni mchawi, it is very hard to condemn or to, and you have to put on those family blinkers and work as professionally as you can, according to your oath of office and your training and experience, which these guys have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to come back and ask you about the sustainability of that effort. But before I do, I'd like to pose one or two questions to Professor Ben Sihanya, and I recognize that he has to go at some point, and I'm going to allow him when time comes. He's been with us the whole day. But what lessons from the judgment do you see that you would share with these critical institutions involved in investigation and prosecution of criminal cases? What do you see as jurisprudence that is taking us forward in this process?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Anne and participants. Because of this, I'll try to delay my leaving. I had a client's meeting, but I'll delay it a little because this is a very important process for us. So, the jurisprudence. The jurisprudence, what lawyers call jurisprudence is basically what the case talks about and what lessons we learn from it, etc., etc. So you are saying that what do we learn moving forward? What lessons do we learn from this case? Let me just focus on three. Number one is that the courts now have recognized in this case, let me focus on this case. This case, because there are still so many challenges. In this case, this judge and this court and the 5 judges who, four also judges. Hello, is it working? Yeah, the 4 judges who helped in this case, including magistrates, and some of them were, for example, Justice Luka Kiprotich Kimaru, who's now in the Court of Appeal, Justice Ogola Ogembo, who at the time was the Chief Magistrate, and who was our classmate, and of course Justice Lesit was the main, the judge who handled most of the issues. What we saw is that, for example, in justice, in the earlier situations, they were very helpful with the issue of the order of habeas corpus. And when we all even had summoned, we had summoned the DCI, the DCI himself to come, the AG. I had someone so many, yeah, no, not the AG, yeah, the DP and the U, yeah. And they took it very seriously, and I think, yeah, they took it, the matter with the seriousness it deserved, and some of them actually came, and that habeas corpus application is now on the day it was heard, and we were to go back to court at around 2. We are told, as we are having a lunch break, that one body has, is it 1, 2? 2 bodies have been seen. So for us, it was because these people now took, the various agencies took the court very serious. This thing is, we don't know where it will go. Because we were serious. We were not joking. We were not laughing. So by the time we went back at 2, before the judge, at least 2 bodies had been received. That was important, that habeas corpus could work, because in the past, sometimes they have not worked. There was a, yeah? Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir. So sometimes they will not work, because there was a case whereby there is a gentleman who had been killed and buried in Ninig Forest, in Eldoret Forest, in the 80s. And the courts gave those orders, and the body was not eventually found at all. So we were at least lucky in this case that some progress had been done. Habeas corpus produced the body. How? Habeas corpus means produce the person or the body. Lawyers call it body, alive or dead. Most people say dead or alive. I prefer saying alive or dead, because I'm always hopeful. That's number one. Number 2 was the issue of who can be heard in court. As I said earlier, and I can clarify a little more, that historically the idea has been that it is the state republic
Minister Mtukwa and his team, my former classmate here, Tabitha, and their team, versus the accused, full stop. And I think that one of the reasons why she has also put it that way, I think she was avoiding. We were not in this as parties, partly because I think they were avoiding some people questioning it, because it's an area that's still being developed. So in this case, victims could be heard. In the past, when we started this case, even some lawyers in this country told us, no, you are going to dangerous areas. Some had an interest in being, bread and butter issues are also there, yeah? So lawyers also must get some briefs. I didn't say that. But then the point is, some lawyers said, you are going into dangerous areas. How can you say that the victims should be heard? Only two sides should be heard, full stop. And you are going to distort the market. But we were heard. And the victims were heard in their right. And we are grateful for the LSK because like Mr. Ongaro and I were representing LSK, and they supported the arguments we were making. We don't take it for granted because it was a major policy decision to make that, do we want victims to be heard and what are the consequences? And therefore, the victims were heard to, because in the past what we had is watching brief, what they call watching brief, which basically means this. A lawyer just sits there, ask no question, you are only hearing and seeing, no speaking. And that is where the law had been. So that's another. The last one for me is that the way this judgment has been written, and I'm glad she wrote it in Nairobi English, not and Kenyan English, not in legalese. It's not written in very tough legal language. She wrote it very, very clearly. We need to read this judgment. This judge was very, very careful, and I think this is one of the best criminal justice judges in the region. She was, and even when we were handling the case, she was guiding at every point on the procedure, the law, the procedure, and the evidence. And she's written on every major issue that were raised, the issues for determination, as the lawyers call it. What were the main problems, the main issues to be considered? And on every point, she looked at what people can argue in court against it. And she really sealed most of them. That's why I was saying earlier that I wish anybody who wants to appeal against especially against conviction, I wish them luck, but the Lord of Amos will protect us. So this is a very well, we should read this judgment to see how to protect people now and into the future. They disappeared, they killed. It's a very good judgment. Let's read it.
Thank you. Just speaking it from there, Mr. President, what is LSK looking to do to advance justice for victims? We've had a very progressive judgment, very good jurisprudence coming out, institutions committed to their work. Where does the LSK see its role going forward?
Mostly on collaborations and building collaborations. We still have a long way to go with regards to victim representation. In some courts, the scope of representation is extremely limited as opposed to what happened in Willie Kimani. So that's an area that we need to, and we are actually working with the judiciary to ensure that most of the magistrates and judges are trained in victim representation so that we can expand that scope. The other issue is to work with the other agencies, the witness protection. There are several challenges that they are facing. Some also arising even from our members, because there is a way in which advocates ought to be sensitized on how you cross-examine a witness who is under protection. Because if you cross-examine them in a manner that then is able to reveal maybe their identity, if their identity is being masked, or where they are, you know, all those kind of things, putting them maybe in possible danger. Those are areas which we still need to work on, and we have quite a bit of challenges. The other is just getting our colleagues to understand the question of security, the question of being able to assess the risk in terms of the cases, the risk profile in terms of the cases that you're handling, and how do you then make yourself safe. I think I would want to echo what Kiprotich said. The lucky breaks that were there in Willie Kimani's case. You want to say that if perhaps the note, Willie did not have a pen and paper to write a note, that perhaps then they would have, we would never have come to know the truth. That if the investigators during, at the scene of crime had not picked out some of those cigarette butts, we would probably never have gotten to have some sort of DNA that can place some of the suspects at that place and then tie around all this when the confession come in. So there are all those issues, and I think there's a lot more to be done in terms of our own appreciation, the appreciation of the investigative officers in the managing of the scene, because there are so many useful tips that can get lost at the moment of that initial investigation, which if not taken, then you lose the entire case. So I think those are the areas which I see as areas that we need to work on together going into the future. But also, it is important for us as the law society and also as advocates and everyone to really take steps to protect the independence of the judiciary. And not just the independence of the judiciary, but also to ensure that the judiciary is given the resources that it requires, not just the judiciary, the police, the ODPP, because you would find that the sectors that are largely underfunded are these sectors which are extremely critical. I say this because in the case of Elgiva Bwire and Professor Nandwa, it was the action of the court in giving, we filed an application for habeas corpus in the morning, it was certified urgent. We told serve and let the AG appear in the afternoon. In the afternoon, the AG failed to appear. We had served, so we told the court we have served, and they have not come. So we seek an order to compel the IG and the DCI to come, because they are the ones who can explain where this body is. And that order, given the same day, on the following day, when the IG is now supposed to report to the court, of course, the AG will come with their usual issues, and we make a lot of noise. So it is confirmed they have to appear personally, and if they don't appear. So the following day, Professor Nando is found. He is released. Almost a similar script to what happened in Willie Kimani. So if we don't have judges who have the courage to be able to take those drastic steps because their independence has been watered down, then because we still live in that environment, then we are going to lose this fight. So it is important for all of us to appreciate just how critical it is, not just to have an independent legal profession, but also an independent judiciary, one that is of courage to be able to confront some of these challenges that we face as a country.
We have the Kenya Champions of Justice who would be looking up to the Law Society of Kenya. Do you see like PIL is one of the areas that you would like to advance, and if so, how?
I think one of our strongest signatures, even when the Law Society is not working very well, is that we always speak out on through public interest litigation. But we now need to up the game to be more strategic also, not just engaging in the usual public interest litigation cases, but more of now strategic litigation. And I think that is an area which we are looking into as a law society, and we're forming a vision in terms of how we can be able to intervene. So we would desire a more stronger collaboration with the justice actors within within the country, operating within the justice sphere, so that together we can then work. There's so much work that needs to be done if you look at the prison system, pre-bond, the pre-trial detention. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we can only succeed in this work if we work together, if we collaborate. And so I think it still comes back to the first point, that there is need for stronger collaboration. And so the Law Society is open to working with all sectors within, all stakeholders within this sector to improve the administration of justice.
Okay, thank you. But just going on to IPOA, an important institution in investigation of police misconduct. IPOA, please tell us, what are some of your experiences in investigating investigation of cases of police misconduct? And there is also a bill that has come to Parliament, the Security Services Laws Amendment Bill of 2023. Do you think it will push back some of the gains we've had in this area? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Anne. The proposed bill seeks to expand the technical mandate of IPOA. It also seeks to include other agencies involved in some form of enforcement of laws, or to come under the purview of IPOA's mandate, which is a good thing really, because it means that IPOA will be able to oversight anybody who has the potential of serving as a special police officers. These it's a reserve sort of the National Police Service, where when we have requirement for extra policing, the NPS, the Inspector General, draws officers from those other institutions and they undertake policing work. So as IPOA, we are very glad and we welcome the expansion of our mandate so that we can be holistic in our investigations. But also to add on what the bill is proposing, also arising from Willie Kimani's and the Mavoko 3's death, we had an introspection of our processes. And one of the areas that we looked at was to develop our own regulations, which would then operationalize our act. We have had the goodwill of all the stakeholders before you in terms of enriching those draft regulations. So we are confident that with the bill, together with the regulations, we will be able to undertake our mandate in a more effective and efficacious manner for the benefit of Kenyans. But we also learned a few lessons from Willie Kimani's and his colleagues' death, and one was the power of synergy among the criminal justice actors, both state and non-state. And as a result of that, we chose stakeholder prioritization, mapping, as a key component of the strategic areas that we are focusing on. As a result of that, of course, then, we have better relationships with all the actors here. That means that our cases and our investigations progress faster. It means that some of the issues, the challenges you mentioned, like non-cooperation on the part of the police, it is addressed through the improvement of the relationship that we enjoy or we are trying to achieve through strategic decisions. So one of the challenges we face is, of course, non-cooperation on the part of the police. We also have the blue code of silence, where a police officer can decide, for example, in this instance, not to book people who are entering into police detention because a colleague has asked. So all these issues, we believe that we are going to address them through stakeholder cooperation, improvement of our relationships. Another challenge that we face, and the LSK president has mentioned, is we are underfunded. Our act obligates us to be at the grassroots. Today we are only in 9 regions. We envision at some point with resourcing, we'll be able to be in 47 counties, and we'll also be able to expand our human resource and our technical capacity so that we'll be more responsive towards towards our work. Thank you.
Thank you. Penina, if I may just come to you, as a citizen of Kenya, we saw how the public kept being appraised and updated of the happenings, the investigation and prosecution and trial in this case. And there's a commitment by the institutions to work together for better access to justice. To what extent what do you want to see? As a Kenyan, you and me, what do we want to see from these institutions? You've been in the space for a while. What do you want to see being done better, and what lessons would you share?
Okay, if you may allow me, let me first do a small introduction of what is KCJ. KCJ is a group of survivors of police abuse of power who have received legal and moral support from IJM to seek justice. We are survivors who have healed and have decided to use our voices and share our stories to bring change in our community. Our main objectives are to champion for justice in our communities, to encourage other victims of police abuse of power to report cases and follow up. We also find opportunities to share our stories, especially in government forums where reforms of police are being discussed. We also visit police stations and have dialogues with them, with the officers in charge. Okay, coming back to you, as a survivor of police brutality, what befell Kimani, I could have been a victim of it a week before. If it were not for IJM and IPOA intervention, my story today would be different. The day Kimani went missing, I was barely 2 days old in a hotel room under government witness protection program. I would commend the law played by witness protection units, because I believe if they had acted fast, would be with Mwenda today and Josephat and Wiloli. Those still I commend them because they protected me. The other thing, where I find that justice or the judiciary is failing us as survivors, when we go to testify there and you're not under protection, there are no witness boxes. Because many like in my team, most of our members have not yet to receive justice. So I would urge the legal team to work hand in hand with IJM and IPOA so that my colleagues would get the justice they so much deserve. And coming to Willie, today I'm a happy person to see that our members from the three Mavoko family have received the justice they so much deserved. Thank you.
And see opportunities for collaboration on PIL. There's a cry for justice. IJM already has over 70 cases. So there we are. Lots of work for you. And thank you so much, Penina. You represent a very important constituent. And the work that's going on is for you, is for us, Kenyans. So, but just on the sustainability of this work that went on, and I'll go back to DCI. How do you see this being sustained? What efforts are being put in place? And I appreciate the work you're doing behind the scenes. It's a lot of work. But what measures do you have to ensure that what happens in the investigation of our successful case here can be carried on to other cases?
On the off, one word, training. The group that undertook this investigation are very highly trained officers, American trained for those who maybe are not in the know. And it's from their skill sets that they could use, the skills that they acquired in training, and they translate it into proper crime scene management and investigation into homicides. With more training, because the group started off, the Kinasena started off as a small section in the DCI, very, very few people. And then from that core group grew now a very, very dedicated team of investigators. That is one. Number two, embrace of technology. As it has been recounted here numerous times, how the case was cracked using technology and the ironclad nature of and you know, non-personal nature of technology. We have now young people who are very technology savvy, unlike us dinosaurs in the force, who we can harness, and they know how to play around with technology for the good of any investigative task. And systems. We can sustain the successes that have been so well narrated here by having working systems. We have we have internal affairs, we have IPOA under our laws, under the Constitution. And I can tell you, it makes you honest when you are investigating a case and you have IPOA breathing down your neck on one side, there's internal affairs. Here, there are so many other bodies that have been created to make sure you keep in the straight and narrow. So systems, training, technology. Why training? I can, if you allow me to digress, at one point we had a group of FBI investigators brought to us to assist in that investigations. And I think somebody from the US Embassy, an FBI liaison guy, and from the onset, when we visited the killing field, as we were calling it, the crime scene, and they got to see this team working. At one time, they had to stand aside and say, "You guys are doing more than we could have done. Maybe you should have been the ones in advising us." And at the end of the day, I remember, assembling all the teams together and doing a debrief. And I think it's the guy from the US Embassy spoke to me in very clear, though American tinged Swahili. Nimependa vile umefanya debrief. You could have knocked me over with a feather because we were talking about them the whole day, but luckily no bad words about them. And kumbe, this guy is a Swahili proficient. So it was not a pleasant situation, I can tell you. So I'm making that point, the training and training. And also a change in our national psyche. Police officers don't come from outer space. We recruit your mothers, your uncles, your brothers and sisters. And there's a saying, somebody told me, I don't know whether it is true. If you want to see the true nature of a society, look at their politicians and their policemen. You'll have a feeling of what type of people are in that place. Thank you.
In the eyes of our politicians, but we definitely appreciate the important work that the National Police Service and Police Force is doing, the police service is doing. But just highlighting, I have just two more questions, and then we'll just respond to a few areas that have come up. Professor Sihanya, are there risks to advocates who are doing this important work of human rights? What lessons do you see from your role in the Willie Kimani trial to the successful conclusion of it? Are the courts now recognizing LSK members as victims? What do you see as lessons for human rights lawyers in this work?
what do we see as the major lesson for HR, human rights lawyers moving forward from the case of the Mavoko 3? Kimani, Mwenda, Mwiruri. Three major lessons for as far as I'm concerned. I always like talking about three, inspired by the Holy Trinity. So number one is that we definitely need more training on human rights and this kind of cases, especially because there are so many technical issues that are involved. We are able to read a lot more on technology, the use of technology. What is IMEI? What is what? Those they were complex. These cases are very complex, and they are going to be complex because technology is now part of our life. But still, there are so many complex areas, and those who want to commit crime invest more on how to use technology. So the training is necessary. I'm focusing here now, especially in the bar. And the president here talked about LSK taking this more seriously, and we agree that LSK has taken this more seriously, and the participation, including the cases that the president has cited, show us, you know, a lot of these things the bar depends a lot on LSK to handle these difficult cases. One may even tell you that, you know, there are sometimes rumors, you know, why are you taking that case? What is your interest in there? You know, you may not be very safe. We had all those things, by the way. I want to tell you that why are you handling that case? Do you think you guys are going to really be very safe? And we said, we are in the hands of God. If anything happens and we are just doing what is right under the law, let's do it. So it requires both wisdom, learning the law, learning the technical areas, and especially through further training, but also the courage that we also got when we knew that LSK and other agencies, IAJM were behind us. Number two is this issue of let us encourage and inspire the prosecutorial this system of prosecutor DCI. I think that here this one needs constitutional amendment. The issue of DCI, ODPP, and judiciary, constitutional and statutory amendment. Let me give just a few examples here. Number one, during BBI there were serious presentations by DCI that as of now they need to, their status need to be upgraded, and the BBI proposal compromise on making DCI the third, one of the three deputy IGs, and that is enhanced that office. That office is dealing with very difficult issues, and one of the presentations they made that they need to attract and retain high quality staff. And if you enhance that office, it is important. Then number two, the office of DPP. They also made a very serious presentation in BBI, which was accepted that, you know, the DPP as of now is the level of High Court judge. Mr. Mtuku, yes, and we agree, and BBI agreed that, you know, elevate that office at least beyond that, at least to Court of Appeal judge, so that even their deputies now can also. So those are serious issues, and these are also lawyers, but also technical issues. Others. And that the judiciary, Mr. Matuku mentioned some items which I can also add to about what to do about the judiciary. The judges and the magistrates. This idea of let us have some room for specialization. In the US and UK to a large extent, and some other countries, there's a lot of room for judges to even be specialized. And you have some judges who, for a long time, I know specialization has its own, so it's demerits, but the main issue is that these things are so technical that unless you have a judge who has a personal interest in that, a professional interest in helping develop criminal justice, for 3 years you are in criminal division, 3 years you are in family, 3 years you are in that. While transfers are good, okay, I think that we should work on a system whereby judges can be allowed and magistrates can be allowed to also specialize, because we are dealing with very difficult cases. And the defense lawyers many times can easily outsmart our
processes because they are repeat players in the same game for a long time, and they have invested. And you know, and some of these criminals go for the best lawyers money can buy. Except that, as you know, in these cases, we also had the best, some of the best lawyers in town that money can buy, but we were not bought by money. So I think I will, I would leave it there and say that let us have even greater collaboration with the academy, etc., etc. And let us resource funds to help pro bono lawyers. For me, I was trained by Oikyo Kombaka Public Law Institute to be a public interest lawyer, strategic litigation lawyer, whereby the main interest is not that the issue is affecting the public. The issue of being paid fees is not an issue. But the reality is that if we want to promote, to make more lawyers get interested, at least there should be some legit money to support them. It's not easy. For example, it was not easy for many people to take 6 years, 1/10 of a lifetime. It's not easy for those guys.
Surely. But then the last question is with regard to collaboration that has been mentioned quite a bit, and I think the importance of collaboration cannot be overemphasized. Mr. Bida, I do know that ODPP has adopted standard operating procedures, and I'll pose a question to you and to IPOA and IAU. Do you see the SOPs as effective? Are they going to be effective in fostering collaboration?
Oh, okay. Let me just say that, and I think Anne is shying away from mentioning that IJM has worked very closely with the ODPP, supporting us in building our structures to just ensure that police accountability is something that is realized. We have also worked very closely with the OHCHR, Office of the Human Rights, a body of the UN, in developing what she refers to as the standard operating procedures. And this is just a framework for interagency collaboration. And without emphasizing so much, we work with our agencies, IPOA, IAU, and WPA, and Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And we have developed SOPs as a way of enhancing our collaborations and making sure that we work seamlessly and we are able to meet the ends of justice. So these SOPs, let me just add to that. We don't just have SOPs. We also have developed with IJM accountability case digest, and I saw a few copies there. And in this, we just came up with the jurisprudence that has been developed in the past on issues of accountability. And I think that the Willie Kimani case will add to our next volume, because we have volume 1 and we are envisaging coming up with volume 2. So this will help us even enhance the jurisprudence. And all these tools that we have developed, many others, there are about 5, but because of time I'll mention only those 2. They are just not enough. There's still more to be done. What our team are doing currently, and let me mention that the DPP set up a tripartite task force, and I chair the technical aspect of the task force, and we embarked on just doing a sensitization exercise for our stakeholder agencies, that is ODPP, IPOA, and DCI investigators. And we have a regional plan of going to every region. We have things done in North Rift, North and South region, and we intend to go to the next region, most likely the Central region. And what we are doing is that we want to make sure that the users are familiar with the tools that they are using. Because it is one thing to develop tools, but if the users don't even understand the tools, then we will not have the envisaged impact. So that is what we are doing. So we are just emphasizing on sensitization and training. And we cannot run away from training. And training is it's a wide issue, because it is not just about having the technical knowledge, but also having the practical knowledge. There are so many issues that have come up in this discussion and even from our previous speakers. We are talking about what do we do about expediency and just making sure that cases do not last forever. We know that judiciary is an independent arm. Yeah? Yeah, it's an independent arm. And nobody imagines amongst us that we can have a sitting with the judiciary and also say that, okay, we have done our part. We will never be to blame about time, that we never showed up in court. At least I can say for the DPP, it's actually an offense to fail to show up in court. We are always there. We are always there. And asking for an adjournment, unless under extreme circumstances, you will never hear ODPP asking for adjournment. So we are doing our part. And I think all our agencies are doing their part. But now, how do we sit with the judiciary and say, now, like some of these cases of public interest, how do we proceed with them? And it takes an understanding and collaboration and a lot of just people giving in and negotiating to make sure that we get there. But I am sure it can be done and it is achievable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think what the SOPs promise or what they are already doing is one is to offer clarity of responsibility of the duty bearers, but also to ensure that the cases are efficiently handled because there's a tripartite approach and a clear process of handling those investigations. So I think the SOPs is a good thing. It was timely for the development of the SOPs, and the operationalization of the same will be of benefit to victims of police action. So from IPOA's perspective, the SOPs were very timely.
Thank you very much. The SOPs, as been said, are very timely because it was meant to iron out these differences which normally arise every now and then between investigating agencies. So the SOPs came and we can now be able to sit together, iron out our issues rather than going outside there. So it is a work in progress and we feel more should be done so that it becomes a reality. There's one thing that I wanted to comment on the bill, which you've just said, just in brief. The bill which is pending before the Senate, which is intended to radically amend several sections of the National Police Service Act. So our particular concern is on the sections that tend to bar the National Police Service from investigating crime committed by the police. Especially when you say that you are targeting DCI and Internal Affairs Unit. You want to keep them away from investigating those crimes committed by the police. We are saying that is not well thought because as I know, nothing, even we in the Internal Affairs Unit, nothing we can do without the DCI. They have got a vast experience. This institution which has been built over the years, we still rely on them on so many other issues. Even IPOA still rely on DCI on so many other issues, especially on expertise and the DCI. And there are several complex cases like the one we are talking about. Would it not have been the DCI, what we would have been talking about? Because as I said at the inception, IAU could not crack, but we had to run to our sister to come in to our aid. So I think that is something which we should draw our attention to. If you deny the police that capability to investigate crime committed by the police, it's not a matter of cover-up. The reason why IPOA was set up was to ensure that there's clear oversight on the investigating agencies. That's IAU and DCI. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Okal. I think what we are getting is the question of collaboration. Training is critical and important. The LSK's role in public interest litigation and constant, training, looking out for jurisprudence emanating from the courts and even law reform, as we can see there's introduced a new bill that may curtail or may progress. We need to look out and watch out to ensure that some of the progress we've had is not curtailed. So it looks like we would need a whole day to discuss the lessons. We will need more time, but we do appreciate what the panel has done. But most important also, we'd like to appreciate the work of the Witness Protection Agency that has also been mentioned by my sister, Penina, and she's talked about the important role of that agency. And today, the WPA is represented here by the director, Commissioner Jadaida Waruhio. We do appreciate the work that you're doing, and we recognize the importance of that work in proper, in the criminal justice chain. So thank you very much, my panelists, for the highlights that you've been able to give us. We do recognize you didn't have enough time, but you've still been able to share most of your knowledge with us. I'm sure we'll call you again. LSK will be calling you again for collaboration. IJM is looking forward to working with you. Our partners, IAU, IPOA, ODPP, DCI, Penina is one of us. Professor Sihanya, there are many things you can do together, but I can't instruct you because you are both my LLB teacher and my LLM teacher. Former. You were. Now we are colleagues. So I can approach you. All right, so we can talk about some of the areas you've raised and see how we can advance some of these opportunities that exist. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over back to the MC. You have something to say? Okay. Anybody else has something to add?
A last word, please. Yes. Yes. Yes, you are very emeritus person. As a member of the National Police Service, and as they are one of the part of the team that ultimately was involved in unmasking the killers, I'd like to say to the families, it is something that has nagged me ever since we took up that very daunting task. I'd like to say to members of the family, Willie, Mwenda, and Nimwiruri, sorry. As members of the police force, instead of investigating who did this to you, we should have protected you. Sorry. And to the teams that were involved, the homicide team and the detectives, thank you very much. To the office of the DPP for very patiently sitting with us and taking up such a huge amount of information and packaging it in such a way that the judge could accept. To the witness protection, those who we ran to in the initial stages for acting very swiftly to secure some of the very key witnesses. And to Claire and your team at IJM, I don't know where Maida is. Yes, and the whole team, thank you for believing, just for believing in us, for believing that you will not let this go until justice was served. And to your whole team, thank you very much.
Let's end with that justice. Prophet Amos, let justice flow like a river and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream.
Let me insist on something. As survivors, I feel we should be incorporated, and I insist in talks touching on police reform. We are the victims, we are the survivors. We know where it eats most. Thank you.
And I also like to say something from IPOA's perspective. I have worked in IPOA for almost 10 years. And I sit in a privileged position where I have access to every information. This is to the police officers present and the rest of all of us. We have a potential of either getting in conflict with the law, with the police that is, or having close relatives of ours get in negative contact with the police, and hence the need for all of us to be human rights defenders in all our capacities to discuss and share about responsible policing, about also supporting civilian police oversight, and above all, supporting institutions which are in place to ensure that our rights are secured. So let's all become active participants in this discussion so that at the end of the day, we realize above all else, professional police officers in this country. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. My last word, it is our collective responsibility to ensure we end these cases of police brutality. It is my responsibility, it is your responsibility. Let us work together to ensure that we have a better and a professional police service we want. Thank you.
Wow, the commitment is very, very good. Just to answer our colleague, Maitha Kimani, thank you for the appreciation. She's now heading our Uganda office, and we shall sure send your good wishes to her. She played a significant role at the beginning of this case. Unfortunately, she's not with us today, but we shall pass your goodwill messages to her. It will be unfair not to allow the director of the Witness Protection Agency to say something, because the agency has been mentioned quite a bit. So if I would invite you, please, to just say one or two things about the mandate and what opportunities you see existing for progressing forward. Thank you. Jedaida Karibu, if you don't mind. Jedaida is the director of the Witness Protection Agency, and through the conversations you had, a lot of people mention about the agency. It's an important agency, a state body, just to hear from the director herself.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Yesterday I was in a forum where the Solicitor General of the Republic of Kenya said that all that we do without evidence protected and secured is nothing. And I think that is why this conversation is still very valid for us today as we commemorate 7 years. And this is significant for us to appreciate that the number 7 is a number of completion and is a number of truth. And here we'll continue to work and ensure that the truth is done. The Witness Protection Agency, for those who may not be very familiar, is anchored in the Witness Protection Act. And the purpose of the agency is to provide special protection to intimidated and threatened witnesses. And I call it special protection because our first protector are the National Police Service. In fact, before we come to the National Police Service is ourselves as citizens of this republic. We need to be able to secure ourselves, secure the truth, and ensure that we are able to live in harmony. After the National Police Service, we have the judiciary, which comes into place and also has opportunities to provide us with protection. And in the Witness Protection Act, the agency is urged and encouraged to work with the judiciary to ensure that certain protection measures are undertaken in court. I've listened carefully to a number of comments about the judiciary, and it is true the judiciary has a singular responsibility to ensure that there are witness protection pathways within the judicial corridors. Simple things like how do vulnerable witnesses walk in and walk out? Where do they wait? The witness protection boxes. The reduction of information, identifying information, the use of pseudonyms and the like. And if you read the Witness Protection Act, it's very clear on that. So then the Witness Protection Agency comes as a last resort to support all the 3 other actors in ensuring that people are safe and secure all the time. Before, that is during investigation, during a trial process that may be in court, may be in a tribunal, may be in a commission, may be in an inquiry in this country, and out of the country. And after that process is concluded. So that for us, as Witness Protection Agency, even after this case is completed, our work still continues, even with this case, because we never know what this commemoration, what this celebration may ignite, because there are still people who are bitter and angered by those convictions. I think it's very important for us to appreciate the place and the nature of the witness protection mechanisms, particularly because we need to understand that the witness protection is governed by certain pillars. And if we appreciate the same as both state and state actors, then we are able to work effectively and efficiently and receive that state benefit, which of all of us, as citizens of this country, pay our taxes to. We protect those people who have the important information. They are vulnerable because they're intimidated or threatened, and importantly is that they are cooperating with the prosecution and any other law enforcement agency. So if you have that important information and you're intimidated and threatened, but you're not cooperating with the law enforcement agency, then it becomes a problem for us as witness protection to work with you. So that cooperation is very, very important. So then the earliest we appreciate and understand that you have that information and you're cooperating and we know, then it will be easy to protect you. The witness protection pillars are very important. One is the covert capability. You have to always ensure that witness protection is protected, including its officers, even after you're a beneficiary of the witness protection program. Because there are still very many more vulnerable witnesses who are in that program or who are going to join that program. Institutional independence and operational autonomy of the witness protection program must continuously be respected in law and in practice. And that's why in Article 50, witnesses are protected in our Constitution. The use of the human rights approach is very, very important, because human rights is a fundamental principle that we all must operate with, irrespective of who you are or who you're not. Accountability is another important pillar for us, and as accountability is both internal and external. So like the information you have is so, so crucial for us. The earlier we know it, the earlier you give us, the easier and faster it will be for us to deal with it. Lastly is really the unity of purpose of all of us, and we are here because of that unity of purpose. In terms of moving forward for us, we've also reflected seriously on this case. We've read the judgment, we've looked at ourselves internally, we've listened to voices of encouragement, voices of criticism, voices of even anger. We have chosen to step up and to continue doing what we do, but even better. One area is the issue that has been brought about, fast tracking of cases. I think, and I'm glad my president is here, and the senior counsel is here and others, we must encourage lawyers, advocates, students of law to read and internalize the Witness Protection Act, the Witness Protection Regulations, and the Witness Protection Rules, which were gazetted by the Chief Justice. And in those rules it says where there's a protected witness in any case, that case must be fast-tracked, and it must be heard on a day-by-day basis. So we must move that. The way we moved the victims issue, we must move the witness protection rules accordingly. The other area is that we have the Witness Protection Board. If you listen, and I really respect and acknowledge the family for their courage to stand in up to now. The Witness Protection Board is really a board. We must push it and move it and ensure that it has adequate funding. It actually begins to do what it's supposed to do, to help the survivors of this kind of atrocities in terms of support, rehabilitation, and compensation. It is not complete without the victims in that sense. The other area is on the officers who have been part of some of these cases, be they be lawyers or non-lawyers. We also have to get a sense of how we debrief them so that they can have the courage and the momentous and the mental health to move on and engage in those kind of cases. I don't know how NPS, IAU, IPOA, and DCI sit, but I imagine that is not easy for them. The last thing, and this goes again to my colleagues in the legal fraternity, jurisprudence. If you read that case, when it comes to the jurisprudence around witness protection, it is not developed. It is not developed. If you go through our various case digests, the best we have are rulings. We need solid judgments that speak and secure witness protection mechanisms. We need to be able to do that, because that is the only way that in court and out of court will be very proactive in using this mechanism that we all can benefit from. So we must push for jurisprudence. That means as prosecutors, as defense, as victim lawyers, we must start citing cases, authorities around witness protection so that we can have that body of knowledge in this country. And why that is also very important for Africa is that it is only Kenya that has a very solid witness protection agency, a very solid witness protection program after South Africa. Therefore, we can pioneer issues of witness protection and then also assist our sister states to also develop their law on witness protection and a program on witness protection program. Lastly, I want to speak about justice collaborators. This case was won on the ground of justice collaborator. These are people who are part of the criminal enterprise, have decided to plea bargain, and have decided, I want to help the state. Complex organized crime is going to be won in the future, because the future in the face of crime will be won by the justice collaborators. And we must protect them, and we do protect them, and there are many. We must give them the confidence to work with the courts, with the prosecution, and with the investigators, so that they can come forward. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. A big clap for Madam Jedida. I think it was definitely welcome to invite her to just share with us. Our panelists want to thank you again. I think we need a whole day. Probably we should organize a whole day of deliberations, people to ask questions and we respond. But today I think it's already, we are 1 hour past time. So we want to thank you. You can exit the stage. And as they leave, a big clap for them. Let's pass that side. And as they exit, we're coming to an end, and I'm going to invite Claire. Claire is our vice president, and she was the field office director when this thing happened. So she's the one that Said was talking about here. So Claire will come and give us a vote of thanks, and then she will invite Bishop Omwanda, who will come and close for us with a word of prayer. So Claire, a clap for Claire. I think running an office during such a trial, I think, must have been difficult.
Well, thank you very much for bearing with us, particularly in, it's like the opposite of winter in this room, or is it just me? I'm incredibly warm. I was wondering if I was hitting that stage of a lady's life. Anyway, thank you very much for being with us today. I've got lots of people to thank, so I'm going to suggest you hold your applause for all of these amazing people until the end. And wish me luck, because I don't have my glasses on. So if I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. Firstly, I'd just love to thank Javan the poet and his team. Thanks for starting us so very well. Thank you to Pastor Linda for praying us in, and for the pastors here representing the PCEA, the Greater Mathari Fellowship, and Father Patrick Ndungu from the Catholic Justice and Peace Commission. We're so grateful to have you with us. I want to thank especially the families. Hannah, give our love to Castrol and Patterson. Getting giant, I know. Mama Willie, Baba Willie, we're so grateful for you, and for the rest of the family for your steadfast pursuit of justice. We're so inspired by your bravery. Thank you. Rebecca, please give our very best love to Fortune. We're so grateful for you and for your courage. And please Edward, we also want to just thank you for your courage in being here and for standing all the time for Josephat. Paul, thank you so much for standing for Maruri. Please give our love to Grace and the rest of the family. We're really grateful for you. And it has been our honour and our joy to walk with these families the last few years. I feel like Saidi and I were just saying we were younger people when this all began. And we're now older and wiser. So thank you. Should tie these together. Benson. Thank you, Country Director. Thank you for your words. Thank you for leading this team. It's been an inspiration to watch. I want to thank the Africa Uncensored team led by John Allen Namu for that amazing documentary. You just captured so well what these last years have been for all of us. I want to thank our CSO partners, in particular Demas Kipranov from Missing Voices and the whole team. It is so encouraging to us to have data that we can all rely upon and we can all stand upon. And thank you to Isabella Obala for presenting the words from Mr. Peter Kiama. Please bring our greetings back to everybody at the Police Reforms Working Group. It takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to seek justice. And we're aware that everybody in this room makes that possible for us. Thank you. Dr. Fred Ojiambo, thank you. I came back from my first meeting with you and told the office that I wanted to be like you when I grew up. And they all laughed, and then they met you and they came back and they said, you're right. So thank you very much for representing the victims. Please pass our grateful thanks to Stephen Ongaro and the rest of the team. Stephen is here. Stephen, thank you so much. So grateful. It was just sterling work, and that jurisprudence is going to help generations of survivors and victims, which is just amazing. Professor Sihania, thank you. Thank you for your wise words in court every day, for representing LSK, for supporting the victims, and for leading the next generation of lawyers into public interest. We're incredibly grateful. Nicholas Mutuku, it has been a joy as a fellow prosecutor to watch you prosecute this case with your whole team. It has just been so professionally encouraging for me, and we're so grateful. Please pass our thanks on to the rest of your team. A very well-deserved Prosecutor of the Year award that was. Francis Mureithi from the Radio Africa Group, thank you so much to you and to all the members of the media here and represented here. The constant coverage of the Mavoko case and of issues around police accountability and human rights is just so powerful and so important. Andy Griffiths, thank you for coming from London to winter in Kenya, for supporting our teams and for leading the region. We're really grateful for you. Eric Thiori, thank you for all the work, the president of LSK. The partnership of LSK in this whole journey has been so encouraging and so critical, so thank you. To our panel members, I want to thank Penina, representing all from the Kenyan Champions for Justice. Thank you so much. I want to thank Eric Okamwangi from Internal Affairs. So wonderful to have you here. I remember my first phone call to Internal Affairs, just like I remember turning up at Saidi's office at 5 a.m. to be the random Mzungu there to report somebody missing, which definitely power freaked everybody out. But thank you for taking our calls. Thank you for turning up early. To Tabitha Oyuga, thank you for leading the Civil Rights Division. It is so encouraging, the work that you are doing, and we just continue to pray for the expansion of your team and the continued success of your work. Thank you, Saidi, keep your teach. Thank you for letting me sit in your office at 5 a.m. And for taking our complaint and for leading the DCI. It has just been, it's been a joy to work with you. Thank you. Professor Sianya, thank you for sitting on the panel. And Jedida Waroi, thank you for leading witness protection. It was so wonderful for us to work with you, and we're grateful for your remarks today. As I said, it takes a village. And I've been a prosecutor for a long time before I came to Kenya, and this case for me was just very inspiring to watch multidisciplinary collaboration in action. I want to thank every single group of people, every single organization who've been part of the journey with the families, with IJM from the very beginning. I want to particularly thank IPOA. Mr. Halaki was one of the very first people that I called when we realized that Willie was not with us, and IPOA were very quick to answer our call. And the way that IPOA and IAU and the DCI worked together on this case, remembering this is 7 years ago and it was all very new, was just for us like the gold standard. Is what we want to see, the checks and balances, the skills all brought to the table. So thank you very much. Thank you to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, to the Witness Protection Authority. Special thanks obviously to all the investigators, to Clement Mwangi, to Nicholas Olesena, to all the other officers in all the institutions who work tirelessly, often behind the scenes, and you know whose hard work and sleepless nights they are seen by the Father, and He knows. Thank you to the Law Society of Kenya, to the Social Justice Centres Working Group. Right from the beginning, the Social Justice Centres were on the streets with us, were in the media. Thank you to the Police Reforms Working Group, and thank you to the judiciary. The independence of the judiciary makes all of this possible, and we are incredibly grateful that we have a strong judiciary here in Kenya to protect the rights of citizens. And just also thank you to all those of you who joined us on the way, to all our friends in the media, to the Kenya Champions for Justice who were formed during this the lifetime of this case, to Missing Voices, our human rights defenders, and all members of the church. I want to just especially call out all the survivors who are here, those who've seen justice in their cases and those who are still waiting. We see you and we pray for you, and we're really grateful that you are voices in this space, and we cannot wait to see your leadership take even more strength and power. Finally, thank you to our moderators, Carice and Esther. Very difficult job, but you kept us all together even when everybody really wanted lunch. And thank you to every single one of you for being here, especially thanks to my IJM colleagues. It's been the privilege of my life to lead you, and I am like a very proud mama watching you from afar and now near again. As I sat here today, I was thinking about Nelson Mandela, and at the end of his autobiography, what he says, because it reminds me of where we are today. He says this: "I have walked the long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way. But I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I've taken a moment here to rest, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, to look back on the distance I have come. But I can only rest a moment, for with freedom comes responsibilities, and I dare not linger, for my long walk is not yet ended." For every one of us in this room, we have given thanks today for the 7 years, and we have looked back. We have seen the vista, but there are many more hills in front of us, and our long walk is not ended. But we are so grateful that we are in this together. So thank you. I am going to invite Bishop Omwanda up to close us in prayer. One of the things you might not know about Bishop Omwanda is he is a justice warrior. He gave space for the Kaioli Justice Centre to set up, and we're so grateful for him. So I'm going to invite Bishop Omwanda up to close us in prayer, and then you are free, and you get to clap for everybody. Thank you. And you will get a lunch voucher on your way out. So please stay for lunch, stay for some conversation, and we'll plan the longer event in the future. Bishop, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want us to pray. May I read 3 verses in the book of Proverbs, and then we pray. In Proverbs 21, verse number 15, the Bible says that when justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. And you get Proverbs 24, verses 24 and 25. It says, "Whoever says to the guilty, 'You are innocent,' will be cursed by people and be denounced by by nations. In 25 it says, but it will go well with those who convict, but it will go well with those who convict the guilty, and rich will come to them. Shall we pray? Our dear loving Father, we want to thank you this afternoon. When we began this commemoration, Lord, we did commit the meeting into your able hands. And Lord, we have seen the end of this meeting. We thank you for every participant. And we thank you, Lord, for the great work that you've continued to do through all the actors in this matter. More so, Lord, we want to bring the families of the Mavoko 3. We continue, Lord, to bring them under your mercies and under your grace. The Lord, you are the God of all comfort, God of all provision, God of all protection. Continue to minister to them, to their needs individually and as a family. We thank you, dear Father, that even the cases that are still pending, Jehovah God, wisdom will prevail. You will be able, Lord, my Father, to strengthen all the actors in the remaining cases and even the ones that will emerge. It is our humble prayer that as we leave this place, let your hand continue to protect and shield all of us, that as we go back to places of our work and stay, you will be able, Lord, to watch over us and protect us. We also pray that, Abba Father, the lunch that is provided, you will be able to bless it. May it, Jehovah God, nourish our bodies and give us the strength. How I pray that each one of us be a partaker of your double grace and your blessings. Dismiss us, Lord, as we go with your peace. In Jesus' name, we do pray and believe. Could we join together in the word of grace? And may the grace and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen and amen. Shalom.
Thank you so much, Bishop. So our lunch will be on the 5th floor. So you'll pick a voucher on your way out. This door, you'll find one voucher there, and then there's another voucher pickup place. So we'll go to the 5th floor. Survivors, families of violence, there's a table that has been set aside with the people who are in the panel list that want us to engage. So you will be directed up there where you will sit. Otherwise, have a good day. It was nice having you. We've enjoyed the day, so let's go out and seek. Yeah, bird.